Chapter 1890. 11th Update. Once again, thank you, and wish our little friend Jushin a speedy life. The normal meaning of one heart and one mind was to focus and ignore everything else. On the contrary, one heart and one mind meant to focus on multiple targets at the same time. However, Chunzong had a different interpretation. The sword of one heart and one mind had the meaning of focus. Focusing one's mind on only one target, which meant that one strike could only attack one target. If one wanted to attack multiple targets, one had to strike multiple times. 10 people meant 10 strikes. 100 people meant 100 strikes. However, because Chunzong's sword was too fast, he could strike multiple times in an instant. Coupled with the mystery of the heart sword will, it looked like he had only struck once in an instant. The meaning of one heart and one mind for Chunzong was that it was as if many people were swinging their swords at the same time. This meant that in an instant, Chunzong only needed to swing his sword once and he could attack multiple targets directly. It was as if there were many people swinging their swords at the same time. Moreover, many of them could also perform the sword of one heart and one mind. In other words, under the sword of one heart and one mind, one could also perform the sword of one heart and one mind. The combination of these powers was even more terrifying. Chunzong understood one heart and one mind as 5 heart and 1 mind, which meant that 5 phantoms could appear at the same time to attack with his sword. The power of each strike was astonishing and terrifying. However, only 1 phantom could appear at the moment. There was still a lot of room for improvement. Even so, the power of this strike was much more powerful than the sword of one heart and one mind. In addition, Chunzong had condensed the top-level flower of God. The invisible power was even more condensed, and its power surged beyond the limit. It was even more terrifying. In an instant, tens of thousands of branches were penetrated and then crushed by the terrifying power contained within. It went straight to the tree trunk that was shaking from Ghost King Xian Lai's continuous bombardment. If it were the Ghost Mother Tree in the Ghost City of the Taishan realm, it would have been destroyed by such an attack. However, the Ghost Mother Tree of the Ghost Forest tribe was very amazing. It could still hold on until now and even launch a counterattack. In a split second, the dark clouds scattered and a blood moon filled the sky. It shone with blood-red radiance, and streaks of light shot down like sharp swords. Under the illumination of the crimson light, the originally dark and gloomy ground appeared a little more demonic, as if there was a layer of blood flowing slowly on top of it like water. A shrill scream rang out, and there seemed to be a hint of joy in it. It was the cry of the Ghost Mother Tree. "Increase your attacks," Ghost King Xianlai growled. Whenever the blood moon fully appeared, the ghost hunter on the Ghost Mother Tree would mature and fall from the tree. At the same time, the Ghost Mother Tree would receive an additional boost in strength and vitality, making it even harder to deal with. Of course, although the Ghost Mother Tree had become stronger under the blood moon's illumination, there were also benefits. As long as it was destroyed, it would leave behind a seed. With this seed, one could cultivate a new Ghost Mother Tree in a much faster time. They could even be bestowed with racial talent. For example, they could become the Ghost Mother Tree of the Ghost Blade Division or the Ghost Mother Tree of other divisions. They would not be limited to the Ghost Forest Division. At this point, Ghost King Xian Lai finally unleashed his true strength. An extremely terrifying, imposing aura raged through the surroundings like a storm, mincing everything into pieces and suppressing everything. It was extremely powerful and peerless, like a king that suppressed the heavens and the earth, causing the surrounding space to become completely calm, and not a single fluctuation was able to affect it in the slightest. The Ghost Clan of the Ghost King Division possessed a talent called the Ghost King's Power. This was the strongest power of the Ghost Clan, and it was like a king suppressing everything. Now, Ghost King Xian Lai had activated the Ghost King's power, and his aura had more than doubled, which made Chunzong extremely shocked. Under the top-tier God's Flower, he could sense it more clearly. He was no match for it. If he had a slight chance of challenging Ghost King Xian Lai after he had condensed the top-tier God's Flower and created the 3 Hearts 2 Minds sword technique, then he temporarily extinguished this thought. The difference between them was too great. The battle prowess of a top-tier Ghost King was indeed extremely terrifying. If such a Ghost King had invaded the highest mystery realm, no matter if it was him, Chen Xiu, or Heavenly God Gong, even if the 3 of them joined forces, they would still be no match for it. They would only have died. The Ghost King's power was activated and black light filled the air. It condensed in the sky and turned into a black blazing sun with a diameter of 1 meter. It seemed to shine with endless light, but it also seemed to be constantly rotating toward the center. It was like a collapsing star, turning into a black hole, and swallowing everything in all directions. In just an instant, the void beside the black light became completely dark. Even the light of the blood moon couldn't penetrate it. It was completely swallowed, and it turned into a dark region of several thousand meters. Boom! The Ghost King Xian Lai suddenly pushed with both his hands, causing the ball of dark blazing sun to instantly tear through the sky and emit a rumbling that shook the heavens and the earth. Everywhere it passed, numerous cracks appeared in space, and it was extremely terrifying. Every crack was clearly visible, like lightning and thunder. It emitted a destructive aura that was extremely frightening. Chen Zong and the other 2 Ghost Kings couldn't help but tremble. That kind of aura was too terrifying. Once they were affected, they would die. Even if the Heart Seal treasure robe on their bodies weakened by 70%, the remaining 30% was enough to crush their bodies. Chen Zong increasingly felt that this ghost realm was more dangerous than he had imagined. Before entering, he thought that with his own strength and the protection of the Heart Seal treasure robe, even if he couldn't defeat those powerful Ghost Kings, he could still escape unscathed. Now, it seemed that he was too naive. However, Chen Zong wasn't afraid at all. On the contrary, there was an indescribable excitement in his heart. It was a kind of excitement that made his whole body tremble and his pores open. His mind was roaring, and his spirit sea was constantly fluctuating. The longsword formed by the Heart Sword intent was also trembling. The sword hummed as if it was going to tear the void apart. Half-hearted, kill. With the mystery of the half-hearted sword and the power of the single-hearted sword, in a flash, the sword had already broken through the void. It directly cut out 2 vacuum tracks, and countless fine cracks appeared. Ghost Flame Lai Shan exerted all his strength. His whole body was burning with dark red flames, as if it was going to burn everything into ashes. Boom! The power of Ghost Flame turned into a long saber and slashed out. After the void rippled, there seemed to be cracks, but they were very faint and almost non-existent. This showed that Ghost Flame Lai Shan's battle strength was not as good as Chen Zong's. Gui Yu Wu also displayed the talent of the Ghost Moon tribe. In the sky, a ray of light rose and turned into a dark crescent moon hanging in the sky. The light shone. Chen Zong immediately felt that the void under the light of the ghost moon seemed to become very calm. Under the light of the ghost moon, the screams of the ghost mother tree paused. The thousands of branches that were waving incessantly seemed to become weak, and their strength was greatly reduced. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gui Yu Wu also attacked. The talents of the ghost tribe were different and had their own magical uses. Under the light of the blood moon, the ghost horrors on the ghost mother tree fell down one after another. However, they did not care about these ghost horrors. As long as they could destroy this ghost mother tree and get the seed, they could bring it back to the chaotic ghost city and plant it there. At that time, they would have their own ghost mother tree. Moreover, this was just the lowest level ghost horrors. They did not want to be distracted to collect them. Moreover, under the attack of the 4 ghost kings, the falling ghost horrors were also affected. They exploded or were damaged, and the baby ghost tribe inside died directly. The 4 ghost kings burst out with their full strength. The ghost mother tree's power was tyrannical, but it could not completely resist. Under the continuous siege, it finally broke and fell to the side. The rumbling sound was mighty and incomparably shocking. As the ghost mother tree fell completely, only a huge stump was left. Under the light of the blood moon, a trace of power was drawn from the fallen tree trunk and the stump, condensing into a blood-red ball. In the end, the blood-red ball solidified to the size of a meter, like a heart full of veins. Tree seed. This was a natural tree seed, not a tree seed that was artificially made with large amounts of resources. The ghost mother tree that was artificially made had limited potential, just like the ghost mother tree in the ghost city of the Great Mystery Realm. A natural tree seed meant unlimited potential. Ghost King Xianlai, Ghost Flame Lai Shan, and Ghost Moonwu were very excited. For many years, they had been planning to destroy a ghost mother tree and cultivate another one, even if it was artificially made. Now, their goal had finally been achieved. Moreover, under the light of the blood moon, they could obtain a natural tree seed, which had unlimited potential. While they were excited, Chernzong was also wantonly absorbing the ghost horror's will that spread out after the ghost mother tree was destroyed. The ghost horror's will represented the ghost mother tree's luck, but it was different. Under normal circumstances, it could not be actively absorbed. It could only be passively accepted. For example, when Chernzong became the Ghost Blade Sect's leader, there were traces of the ghost horror's will that actively attached to him. That was passive. Now it was active. The ghost horror's will that was formed by the Tianyuan sacred domain took the initiative to absorb. Chernzong was very happy, even excited. This was because the ghost horror's will that spread out after the ghost mother tree was destroyed was really amazing. It was at least 10 times more powerful than the Ghost King of the Ghost Beast clan that he had killed. It was as if it had turned into a dark dragon and entered Chernzong's body, causing him to tremble. Ghost King Xianlai also noticed this. A divine light flashed in his eyes, but he did not say anything. Instead, he directly put away the tree seed that was slightly beating like a heart. Chernzong also absorbed the ghost horror's will from the ghost mother tree. The world will of the Tianyuan sacred domain that was formed by the ghost horror's will that was formed by the ghost mother tree grew a lot stronger. It gave back a stream of extremely pure energy and directly poured into Chernzong's body. Comfortable, extremely comfortable, indescribably comfortable. Chernzong felt that his body seemed to be undergoing some kind of change, although it was very subtle. Now that the goal was achieved, it was naturally time to leave. The 4 figures immediately moved. However, a strong aura spread out from afar, as if it had sealed the void and released an incomparably terrifying power. Ghost kings from other clans were rushing over. Although they were far away, their strong auras had already locked onto the 4 ghost kings. Chapter 1891. Those who were familiar with the 6 paths of samsara would know that he was a stable author. His strengths lay in a steady stream, not in a sudden outburst. Thus, his outbursts were relatively rare. When the voting started, 6 paths was worried because he was worried that there wouldn't be enough support. But it turned out that 6 paths was wrong, and he was slapped in the face. Not only did everyone support him, but they were also very supportive. Again and again, the 6 paths of samsara was shocked. Thank you very much for your support, brothers and friends. I am so grateful that I have your support and companionship. Now we are in the top 20 in the monthly votes ranking, ranked 19th. This is the highest ranking we've ever had. But the 6 paths of samsara believes that we can go even higher. Some of the juniors in the group said that the 6 paths of samsara had gone crazy. Yes, this time, the 6 paths of samsara was going all out. He was going all out. 3 days of outbursts. How many outbursts he could achieve would depend on whether or not they were strong enough. The day before yesterday, the 6 paths of samsara had released 20 chapters. On the first day, the 6 Paths of Samsara said that if we were in the top 10, we would release 10 more chapters. On the second day, the 6 Paths of Samsara said that if we were in the top 10, we would release 20 more chapters. Today, as the last day of outbursts, the 6 Paths of Samsara wanted to make a new promise with everyone, an even more exciting promise. Before we reach the top 10, we will release 1 more chapter every time we reach the next rank. We are now ranked 19th. When we reach 18th, we will add 1 more chapter. When we reach 17th, we will add 1 more chapter, and so on. When we reach 11th, the 6th Tao of Samsara will add 8 chapters. Including the basic 5 chapters, we will have 13 chapters. If we reach the 10th rank, the 6 Paths of Samsara will release 20 more chapters. In other words, if we reach the top 10, including the 10th rank, the 6 Paths of Samsara will release 33 chapters. You guys did not read wrongly. 33 chapters. 33 layers of heaven. Was it crazy enough? Was it hot enough? Was it hot enough? Was it hot enough? This was the last day of outbursts. This was the biggest outburst in the history of the book. It was the craziest outburst in the history of the 6 Paths of Samsara. After this, the 6 Paths of Samsara did not know if there would be any more outbursts. So, he had to seize the opportunity. Chapter 1892. I'm so excited that I don't even know how to type. Although 2 new League Masters, Kendo V5 and Arvin Liu, have opened up the monthly ticket rankings and directly entered the top 20 and top 10, causing the ranking of gods to drop. Fortunately, it has returned to 19th place. Thank you sincerely for your support. The Blood Moon appeared once a year. Since the Chaos Ghost City was established, the 36 divisions of the Ghost Clan would respond to the appearance of the Blood Moon and pay attention to the movements of the Chaos Ghost City. This time was no exception. However, they did not expect that the Ghost Kings of the Chaos Ghost City would attack the Ghost Blade Division and the Ghost Beast Division to steal the Ghost Territory. More surprisingly, they attacked the Ghost Mother Tree of the Ghost Forest Division. The Ghost Kings of the Ghost Blade Division and the Ghost Beast Division would naturally intercept and defend the Ghost Kings of the 2 divisions. However, attacking the Ghost Mother Tree of the Ghost Forest Division was of great importance. If the Chaos Ghost City successfully destroyed the Ghost Mother Tree of the Ghost Forest Division, the Chaos Ghost City would have its own Ghost Mother Tree and become even stronger. They must be stopped. However, they seemed to be a little late. The Ghost Mother Tree of the Ghost Forest Division had already been destroyed. Moreover, under the light of the Blood Moon, it was very likely that they had obtained the natural tree with amazing potential. Fortunately, they had not returned to the Chaos Ghost City, and there were only 4 Ghost Kings. Hand over the tree. One of the approaching Ghost Kings, the one who emitted the strongest aura, said in a low voice. This was a Ghost King from the Ghost King Division. He was very powerful, but when he stared at Ghost King Xianlai, he had a look of fear. Xianming, are you trying to stop me? Ghost King Xianlai stared at him, his voice carrying a trace of coldness. Xianlai, hand over the tree. Ghost King Xianming was obviously very afraid of Ghost King Xianlai. There was no reason for him not to be afraid, because Ghost King Xianlai was the second strongest in the Ghost King division, second only to the first, while he himself was ranked third. Ghost King Xianlai was a very ambitious person. He wanted to rule the Ghost King division, but unfortunately, someone was stronger than him. Therefore, he betrayed the Ghost King division and built the Chaos Ghost City. This also proved that nothing was absolute. The Ghost Clan was not completely one-track minded. At the very least, there were still some Ghost Clan members who were more self-aware and did not blindly submit to the strong. Instead, they were more ambitious, such as the Ghost King Xianlai. You will die here. Ghost King Xianlai's original intention was to return to Chaotic Ghost City as soon as possible. However, Ghost King Xianming had jumped out to stop him, and the appearance of other Ghost Kings had angered him. His gaze was cold and filled with shocking anger as he swept his gaze across them. All of you will die here. Although the expressions of the Ghost Kings changed greatly, they had no intention of retreating. There were 4 Ghost Kings in the Chaos Ghost City, but there were 9 Ghost Kings intercepting them. There was a huge disparity in numbers. Moreover, besides the Ghost King Xianming from the Ghost King tribe, the other 8 Ghost Kings were from the Ghost Killing tribe, the Ghost Underworld tribe, and the Upper 6 tribes. Ghost King Xian Lai was furious, while Ghost Yen Lai Shan and Ghost Moon Wu were incomparably vigilant. However, Chen Zong was secretly excited. This was what he wanted to see, but now he was in the middle of it. However, only by entering it could one kill the other Ghost Kings of the Ghost Clan and obtain the Ghost Hunter's will. There was no need for more words. Ghost King Xianming took action. The Ghost Kings of the Ghost Killing tribe and the Ghost Underworld tribe knew how powerful Ghost King Xian Lai was, so they chose to cooperate with him. The 3 Ghost Kings joined forces to fight against Ghost King Xian Lai. Imperceptibly, Chen Zong, Ghost Yen Lai Shan, and Ghost Moon Wu were under much less pressure. However, they still had to face the siege of the 6 Ghost Kings. Joining forces, the 3 of them had to join forces to resist. The flower of extreme state appeared, and its strength was fully displayed. Its extremely powerful aura was also wantonly attacking. Above Qin Zong's head, a top-level flower of God and a top-level flower of essence appeared, and the strong aura waves were emitted. It immediately attracted the attention of the Ghost Kings, who were extremely shocked. No matter how they looked at it, Chen Zong was only from the Ghost Blade tribe. It was already amazing that he had a top-level flower of extreme state. It was simply impossible for him to have another top-level flower of extreme state. Chen Zong did not care about what they thought. With a tremor of his sword, he silently tore through the void and attacked. The moment the sword struck, a Ghost King was hit. The speed of the sword was so fast that it directly attacked the mind. It was as if it could tear through everything, and nothing could stop it. The extreme sharpness contained in the sword of single-minded mind raged inside his body and pierced his heart. It was as if it was going to pierce through and mince his heart, causing the Ghost King great pain. After condensing the flower of God, not only was the power more condensed, but it could also hurt the opponent's mind and will. Fight. There seemed to be no prelude. In an instant, the battle became very fierce. The powerful enemy of Ghost Moon King, the Ghost King, suddenly retreated. A black crescent moon was released from its head and hung in the sky. The black moonlight was like water as it shone in all directions. Chen Zong only felt that he had suddenly become lazy and tired. It was as if the tiredness accumulated over the past few days had reached its peak and suddenly erupted, continuously attacking him. Rest. He really wanted to have a good rest. He did not want to care about anything. He wanted to put aside all the battles and fights and have a good sleep. In an instant, the top-level flower of God trembled slightly. All the tiredness and laziness were swept away in an instant. What a terrifying talent! Chen Zong could not help but think. As soon as the moonlight shone, the mind was directly affected. It became sleepy and lazy, as if it was incomparably tired and only wanted to have a good rest. Invisibly, the body was also affected by the mind. It became sluggish and powerless, waiting to be killed by the opponent. However, Chen Zong's mind and will were very tough. He had condensed the top-level flower of God, and also mastered the Supreme Heart Sword intent. No matter in which aspect, he had a strong resistance to this kind of ability that targeted the mind and will. In an instant, Chen Zong not only got rid of the influence of the Ghost Moon tribe's innate talent, but the Heart Sword intent also naturally counterattacked. The invisible sharpness instantly broke through the air. The black crescent moon above the Ghost King of the Ghost Moon tribe trembled and was silently split into 2 halves. The crescent moon was cut and torn apart. The Ghost Moon tribe's innate talent was not unbreakable. It was just that after it was broken, it would reassemble. Generally, it would not have any effect. However, after it was cut by Chen Zong, the Ghost King of the Ghost Moon tribe felt as if his head was being torn apart. It was extremely painful. It was cut by the Heart Sword Intent. The Heart Sword Intent was not only the supreme sword intent, but also the sword intent of the heart. Chen Zong held his sword horizontally. The power silently condensed on the sword. His body seemed to be in a trance, as if an illusion flashed past. The three hearts too intense sword. The power was extremely strong. The Ghost King of the Ghost Moon tribe was immediately hit. There were 2 sword holes on his body. One sword pierced through his forehead, and the other through his heart. The opponent's battle strength was indeed very high, even higher than the Ghost King of the Ghost Beast tribe he had killed before. However, under Chen Zong's increased battle strength, it was still not enough. The body of the Ghost Moon tribe's Ghost Moon tribe was relatively ordinary, but their mind and will were more tenacious. At this time, he was hit by the sword and died directly. This kind of injury was not impossible to heal. It just needed some time. However, Chen Zong would not give him this time. His figure flashed, as if he had teleported, and appeared beside the Ghost King of the Ghost Moon tribe. His sword cut through the sky. One sword, but it seemed to be hundreds of swords. Limbs were cut off, heads were cut off, and everything was crushed. It was too fast. Chen Zong's speed was too fast. His sword was too fast. His strength was even more unexpected. The battle had just begun, and one of the Ghost Kings on the Ghost Moon tribe's side had been killed. After killing a Ghost King, Chen Zong immediately absorbed the Ghost Realm's will. Although it was not as strong as the Ghost Mother Tree, it was much stronger than the Ghost King of the Ghost Beast tribe, at least twice. The feeling of absorbing the enormous Ghost Realms will made Chen Zong feel very wonderful. With the death of the Ghost King, the original 6 against 3 became 5 against 3. On the other side, the Ghost King Xianlai, with his extremely strong strength, was resisting the joint attack of 3 Ghost Kings. The fierce battle was endless. Holding his sword, Chen Zong turned around. His sword struck out silently towards another Ghost King. This was a Ghost King from the Ghost Image tribe. Its body was much stronger than the other Ghost Kings, and it looked very shocking. However, the Ghost King of the Ghost King tribe was also hit by the sword. However, Chen Zong could feel that the opponent's body was very shocking. Even though it was hit by the sword, the injury was very light. The power of the Ghost Image. In the roar, the Ghost Image tribe's Ghost King's body shook. Its extremely terrifying aura rose sharply in an instant, like a volcanic eruption. It was extremely powerful. Its originally strong body suddenly increased in size, and it kept expanding. It became more and more shocking. In an instant, this Ghost King grew from 3 meters to 5 meters tall. Its muscles bulged, and it was covered with finger-thick veins. It was like countless long snakes entrenched, containing extremely terrifying power. This power was very shocking. Once the Ghost Image tribe's Ghost Image force was used, it would make the body bigger and stronger. The power it possessed would also become more terrifying and vigorous. However, it wasn't without its drawbacks. His body had become stronger, but his reaction speed was slightly slower. Hit by the sword. However, the opponent did not care. This kind of injury was nothing. Under the power of the Ghost Image, not only did the body become stronger, but its self-healing ability also increased. As long as it was not a fatal injury, it could be healed in an extremely short period of time. It was because the body of the Ghost Image force was extremely strong that it was able to go on a rampage. For a moment, Chen Zong felt a headache coming on. This kind of opponent was really difficult to deal with. He was hit by the sword, and the injury was not serious. However, if he was hit by the opponent looking at the extremely terrifying fists that were like meteorites, his small body would explode in an instant. Fortunately, Chen Zong's body was extremely agile. He could advance and retreat freely. Following the opponent's violent fists, he was as light as a kite in the wind. Following the wind brought by the opponent's fists, he was constantly dodging and counterattacking. Although the opponent's ghost image body was very strong, Chunzong's heart sword will was extremely sharp. The sharpness of the Genesis sword technique also tore through all defenses. The Ghost Image tribe's Ghost King was constantly hit by the sword. Wounds appeared on its body, but the wounds did not seem to affect the opponent. In fact, they healed very quickly. This kind of body strength and self-healing speed was a headache for Chunzong. It was very difficult to deal with. The ghost clans of the upper 6 tribes were more or less the same. It was just that their talents were different. This was because each of them had different responses. I need to condense the sword aura, Chunzong thought to himself. To a certain extent, this Ghost King was like a body cultivator. He had a stronger body. Then, how should he deal with a body cultivator? Chapter 1893. Second update. Body cultivators had extremely strong bodies. They possessed extremely powerful strength and amazing defense. Their self-healing ability was also superhuman. Not only did they have amazing strength, their survival ability was even more outstanding. If a chi cultivator and a body cultivator of the same level were to fight, the chi cultivator would be the one to die. This was because once a chi cultivator was injured, his strength would be severely reduced. However, a body cultivator would not be affected. Their strong physique and endurance were like ferocious beasts with superior intelligence. A body cultivator was not easy to deal with. The Ghost Clan was even more terrifying than a body cultivator. The Ghost Clan of the Ghost Clan, after activating the Ghost Image body, was even more difficult to deal with, just like the body cultivators of the Ghost Clan. If it had been any other Ghost King of the Ghost Blade division, it would have been extremely difficult for them to break open the body of the Ghost Image. Chunzong was able to do so because of the Taichu sword essence and the heart sword will. Even so, he could not cause any obvious damage to the body of the Ghost Image. Once it was injured, it would be able to heal itself quickly. This was the unique talent of the Ghost Clan after activating the Ghost Image body. Only the Ghost King power of the Ghost King clan could somewhat suppress it. Sword thread training was a small technique that Chunzong mastered after he had upgraded the heart sword spirit to perfection. Although the technique was small, it was very practical. But after Chunzong transformed the Tao insight in his heart into supreme heart sword intent, relying on the might of the heart sword intent to condense his sword chi and make it even sharper to the extreme, Chunzong didn't utilize the technique of refining the sword into threads any longer. When a person was in a predicament, he would usually look for a way out. This was an instinct of an intelligent creature. It originated from the heart, from the depths of the soul. The more outstanding an intelligent creature was, the easier it was for him to find a way out when he was in a predicament. It could be a spontaneous thought or a flash of inspiration. Chunzong had a flash of inspiration when he refined his sword into threads. In a split second, a few strands of silvery white appeared in his pitch-black eyes. They were so faint that it was difficult to notice them in the midst of a fierce battle. Self-freedom state. This was the first time Chunzong used the self-freedom state after he had transformed into a ghost and entered the ghost region. As soon as he used it, he immediately felt a change. This change was a kind of strengthening. Chunzong immediately knew that this was because his divine will had been condensed to the extreme and he had successfully condensed the flower of God. Moreover, it was a top-level flower of God. The state of freedom was a special state that was closely related to the divine will. The condensation of the divine flower had caused Chunzong's divine decree to undergo a qualitative change. Even his realm of freedom had been greatly strengthened. Self-control, controlling the surroundings. Everything was under his control. It was a wonderful feeling. Sword refinement into thread. All of a sudden, all of his power condensed on the sword, condensing into a thread that was even thinner than silk. Kill. As the sword slashed out, the body of the sword disappeared, as if it had transformed into a sword thread. The thread had no sound, no light, and no shape. It was as illusory as a wisp of smoke. But in the next breath, the left arm of the Ghost King of the Ghost Aspect Division suddenly separated from the shoulder and fell to the ground. The Ghost King did not seem to have reacted immediately. It was only when he saw fresh blood spurting out from the broken shoulder that he was shocked. When did his arm get cut off? He did not even react immediately. Then why? It was because the speed was too fast, exceeding his reaction speed. Another question popped up. Previously, his opponent could not do anything to him. Why was he able to cut off his arm now? The bodies of the Ghost Clansmen of the Ghost Aspect tribe were extremely strong, especially after activating the Ghost Aspect body. It was even more astonishing. However, at the same time, their minds were not as agile. At this moment, many questions popped up, causing him to be somewhat muddled and unable to sort them out. Chen Zong did not stop because of this. He attacked again. Sword refinement into thread. The right arm was instantly cut off and fell to the ground. Conscious, the Ghost King of the Ghost Aspect Division sensed it even faster and let out an incomparable roar. Immediately afterward, an incomparably shocking scene appeared. The severed arm that had fallen off actually flew up and reattached itself. As expected, it was more difficult to deal with than the other Ghost Clansmen. It was no wonder that the Ghost Aspect Division was ranked first or second among the upper 6 divisions. If that's the case, I'll shatter you completely, Chen Zong thought to himself. Heart Domain. In an instant, the Heart Domain expanded and covered a radius of 3,000 meters. It should be known that the space in the Purgatory Ghost Realm was much stronger than that in the Tianyuan Sanctuary. Here, the Heart Domain could still cover a radius of 3,000 meters. It seemed to be less than in the Tianyuan Sanctuary, but it was actually more than that. If he were to return to the Tianyuan Sanctuary, the Heart Domain would expand to at least 10,000 meters. Combined with the state of freedom, a feeling of being able to control everything arose spontaneously. Immediately after, the Heart Domain rapidly shrank and merged with the Heart Sword Will. This wonderful feeling made Chen Zong even more impressed. It was as if he could control everything around him with the sword in his hand. It expanded again and covered a radius of 1,000 meters. Heart Sword Domain. The Taichu sword vitality flowed into the longsword of the Heart Sword Will. Within the Heart Sword Domain that covered a radius of 1,000 meters, strands of sword aura appeared out of nowhere. Immediately after, thousands of strands of sword aura rapidly shrank and condensed. They were even finer than silk. Heart Sword Domain. Thousand Swords Greeting. As Chen Zong swung his sword, thousands of strands of sword aura that had been infused with the practice sword into silk technique shot through the air and targeted the Ghost King of the Ghastly Aspect Division. The sword aura that had been infused with the practice sword into silk technique was extremely sharp and incisive. It could easily penetrate the body of the Ghastly Aspect Division. If he had not used the practice sword into silk technique, such power would at most injure the opponent. Even if the opponent was severely injured, it would not be able to cause any serious damage with the opponent's amazing self-healing ability. However, it was different now. The sword aura that had been infused with the practice sword into silk technique became more and more condensed. Regardless of whether it was the sharpness or the incisive sharpness, they had both multiplied and become more and more astonishing. Under the attack of thousands of strands of sword aura, the Ghastly Aspect Division's body was instantly pierced and torn apart. Even though the Ghastly Aspect Division's body had amazing self-healing ability, it was useless against so many sword aura attacks that continuously extinguished its life force. The Ghastly Aspect Division's body had not yet reached the stage where it could regrow limbs or even regenerate from a single drop of blood. Kill. Chern Zong immediately absorbed the ghastly aspect division's will that was about to dissipate. Shock. All the ghastly aspects division's ghost kings were shocked. How could this be? It was very difficult to die in a battle between ghastly aspects unless the disparity in combat strength was too great. However, it could be seen that the ghastly aspect division's ghastly aspect division had only condensed 2 flowers of supreme state. Even though one of them was at the top level and the other was at the high level, they were not solid enough and had not reached the peak. His strength was limited. Even with the help of the ghastly aspect division's power, he could not have easily killed 2 ghastly aspects division's ghastly aspect division's ghastly aspect division. This had completely overturned their understanding. Chern Zong knew that his performance at this moment must have surprised the ghastly aspects division's ghastly aspect division. They might even be suspicious and could not help but investigate. However, the longer Chern Zong stayed here, the more uncomfortable he felt. Out of place. He had to get more of the ghastly aspect division's will and leave this place as soon as possible. As for how much of the ghastly aspect division's will he had, the Tianyuan sanctuary world's will in his body would remind him when the time came. He had to show his strength as soon as possible. The ghastly aspect division's belief was that the strong were respected. Perhaps he would be suspected, but as long as he was strong enough, everything could be solved. Kill. Heart Sword Domain. Myriad Swords Greeting. Once again, Chern Zong used the refining sword into threads to gather thousands of sword chi and launch them at the Ghost King of the Ghost Flame tribe. The Ghost King's entire body was burning with a layer of dark red flames. He was cooperating with the other Ghost Kings to suppress Gui Yen Laishan, beating him to the point that Gui Yen Laishan couldn't do anything. Gui Yu Wu was the same. Facing the joint attack of the Ghost Shadow Tribe's Ghost King and the Ghost Dragon Tribe's Ghost King, he could only defend and dodge. The 2 of them were in a precarious situation. Although Ghost King Xian Lai was very strong, in a 1 versus 3 situation, he could only gain a slight upper hand at most. He was simply unable to provide any reinforcement. 1,000 rays of sword chi tore through the air at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, the sound they made was so subtle that it was difficult for others to react. The Ghost King of the Ghost Flame tribe couldn't dodge in time and was immediately hit. He let out a shrill cry as the ghost flames on his body were extinguished. Kill. The 3rd Ghost King died. Go! Without hesitation, the other Ghost Kings immediately retreated. 9 Ghost Kings had come to intercept them. 3 of them had died, and the remaining 6 had fled. Chern Zong didn't chase after them. This was because the Heart Sword realm under the sword thread technique had consumed more energy. He didn't have enough energy left to perform it again. Otherwise, he would definitely strike again and kill another one. The Ghost Mother Tree's Ghost Realm Will and the Ghost Realm Wills of the 3 Ghost Kings gave Chern Zong's Tianyuan Sacred Domain World Will a good meal. The pure energy that was fed back to Chern Zong made him feel very comfortable. Very good. Ghost King Xian Lai took a deep look at Chern Zong and immediately moved. Let's go. What followed was naturally to rush back to the disordered Ghost City as quickly as possible to prepare to cultivate the Ghost Mother Tree. The Ghost Kings who went to the Ghost Beast Tribe and the Ghost Blade Tribe to snatch the Ghost Mother Tree had also successfully snatched some of the Ghost Mother Trees after fierce battles. They brought the Ghost Mother Trees back and quickly left. After that, they didn't encounter any interceptions because there wasn't enough time. The 11 Ghost Kings rushed out of the 36 Ghost Tribes and entered the Heavenly Ghost Wasteland as quickly as possible. The Heavenly Ghost Wasteland was the largest wasteland of ghost beasts in the Purgatory. Countless ghost beasts lived there, and there were even more ghost beast kings. The disordered Ghost City was built in the depths of the Heavenly Ghost Wasteland. It was very dangerous. Of course, the Ghost Tribe in the disordered Ghost City had already been cleaned up by the Ghost Kings. The ghost tribe in the disordered ghost city would constantly patrol and clean up the area regularly to ensure that no ghost beast army would attack the disordered ghost city. Very good. Ghost King Xian Lai was very excited when he returned to the disordered ghost city. He had gained a lot from this trip. It was really big. He had gotten rid of the ghost mother tree and obtained a natural tree. Its potential was limitless. He also discovered that the Ghost King from the Ghost Blade tribe was shockingly strong. Although he couldn't compare with him, he had great potential. Ghost Blade Jinshin will be the fourth seat of the Ghost King alliance from now on, Ghost King Xian Lai said directly. Chapter 1894. Third update. In Chaos Ghost City, Ghost King Xian Lai immediately took out many resources and began to cultivate the Ghost Mother Tree. He wanted it to take root and sprout. The other Ghost Kings of Chaos Ghost City were also present. They surrounded the tree, mainly to protect it and prevent it from being disturbed. Chen Zong stared curiously at the tree that was beating like a heart. As Ghost King Xian Lai melted the precious resources and threw them into the tree continued to absorb energy. It beat more and more violently, as if it was constantly expanding. It made a sound like a big drum, which reverberated in all directions and created layers of ripples. When the energy accumulated to the maximum, there was a cracking sound. The tree broke open from top to bottom, and the roots extended out. With the determination of a sharp sword piercing through the air, they pierced into the ground and continued to spread and take root. Chen Zong released his consciousness and integrated it into the Ghost Mother Tree. He followed the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree and observed it carefully. This feeling. Chen Zong seemed to have understood something. He continued to devour the will of the Ghost Mother Tree and strengthen the will of the Tianyuan sacred domain that he carried. It seemed that he did not directly gain any substantial benefits, but he did gain some intangible benefit. First, it was the pure energy that was similar to the origin, which merged into the depths of his body and kept accumulating. Second, it was that his comprehension was also affected and temporarily increased. Chen Zong's comprehension was already amazing. With the increase, it was even more amazing. At this moment, he saw the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree break open and grow out. The roots were as sharp as the branches of the Ghost Mother Tree. They pierced through the air and penetrated the ground. They had the determination and sharpness of a peerless swordsman. This made Chen Zong have a deeper understanding of swordsmanship. However, this deeper understanding came after the roots penetrated the ground. The roots were like peerless divine swords. They pierced through the hard ground and penetrated deeply. There was an indomitable determination. Chen Zong knew very well that the ground of the ghost's territory was very hard, like fine steel. The deeper he went, the harder it became. With his current strength, he estimated that he could only stab about 10 meters into the ground if he used all of his strength. But in the blink of an eye, the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree pierced more than 10 meters into the ground, and they were still going down. Chen Zong's divine sense was also following the roots, using them as sharp swords. Everywhere. In just a short period of time, the roots of the Mother Ghost Tree had penetrated tens of meters into the ground, covering hundreds of meters in radius. Moreover, it was still spreading. At the same time, the branches extended upwards, turning into a main trunk that continued to grow taller and taller, soaring into the sky. Chen Zong's spiritual sense seemed to have completely merged with the Ghost Mother Tree, growing along with it. A unique kind of understanding also lingered in his heart, gushing out in his mind and reverberating in his mind. Chen Zong felt that his body seemed to have disappeared. It was as if he had become a tree that sprouted from a seed and slowly grew. It was an indescribable feeling of gratitude and joy. He did not know how much time had passed before he suddenly woke up. His consciousness returned to his body, bringing with it a surge of understanding. At this moment, the ghost mother tree had grown to a height of 1,000 meters, the same height as the ghost mother tree in the profound realm. However, in terms of aura, it was more vigorous and tyrannical. After all, it was a ghost mother tree that had been planted from a natural tree. The ghost mother tree had taken shape. Next, it would continue to pour in precious resources, absorb the power of the ghost realm, and continue to grow. This would take some time. Chernzong said goodbye and returned to the Ghost Blade sect to begin his closed-door training. In that moment, he seemed to have transformed into the ghost mother tree and integrated all his experiences into his own sword principle. A kind of resolute and indomitable sharpness quietly condensed in Chernzong's body, becoming more and more tyrannical. As the heart sword will trembled slightly, more potential was incessantly stimulated. Time passed slowly. Chernzong opened his eyes, but there was no radiance. Instead, it was completely locked, flowing in the depths of his eyes like ripples of water. In an instant, there seemed to be an undetectable light streaking across the void. That was the sword light. Chernzong had struck with his sword. However, the sword was too fast. It seemed to have merged into the void and was difficult to detect. But in the next moment, a series of fine sword marks spread out rapidly, like the roots of the ghost mother tree spreading in all directions. The void seemed to have turned into the earth, and the sword chi was like the roots of the ghost mother tree, deeply rooted and covering a radius of several meters. Of course, compared to the thousands of meters of the ghost mother tree's roots, a radius of several meters was like a firefly compared to the bright moon. But Chernzong was more aware of the difference. Perhaps this kind of sword chi will cause more damage to the ghost clan, Chernzong said to himself. Previously, when he struck with his sword, the sword chi would penetrate or tear the target. However, if the target was very strong, the sword chi could only cause a small or even minor damage. But now, under his enlightenment, the sword chi could grow like the roots of the ghost mother tree, spreading in all directions and increasing the damage by many times. If he merged the sword chi into silk, even the ghost lord of the ghost aspect tribe would not be able to withstand it. Chernzong was only guessing. He needed to find a target to test it out. But before that, he still needed to cultivate for a while. With a flip of his hand, a fist-sized, pitch-black, exotic fruit appeared in Chernzong's hand. It was covered with red veins. This exotic fruit was like a heart beating continuously. It was slow but powerful. This was the substantial reward that the ghost Lord Xian Lai had given to Chernzong. It was better than raising his ranking from 10th to 4th, at least for Chernzong. With the exotic fruit in his hand, Chernzong immediately felt a desire coming from his body. He wanted to swallow and absorb the fruit. This was an exotic fruit that was very useful for his physique. Swallow. As soon as the mutant fruit entered his mouth, it was immediately chewed up. The juice surged in his mouth like a torrent. It made Chernzong feel as if what he had eaten was not a fruit, but a river that had burst its banks. If he was not careful, it would rush out of his mouth and spit out. But Chernzong kept his mouth shut. The taste of this fruit was strange, pungent, and irritating. It was like a mouthful of blood. It was hard to accept, but he had to swallow it. Chernzong swallowed the fruit juice in his mouth. It flowed down his esophagus like a torrential river, like a waterfall that was tens of thousands of feet high, full of power. As the juice entered his stomach, rumbling resounded as if it had transformed into a torrent of lava that was extremely blazing, and it intended to incinerate Chernzong's limbs and bones into nothingness. Refine. Absorb. The high-level flower of essence condensed on top of his head. As he continued to refine and absorb the juice of the exotic fruit, it gradually solidified. The degree of solidification of the flower of extreme could be divided into 100%. 100% was perfect, it was completely solidified, and 10% was just a shadow. Before Chernzong ate the exotic fruit, the degree of solidification of his flower of essence was 30%. Now, it had reached 40% and was still in the process of solidification. It was not until 50% that the power of the exotic fruit was depleted. A single exotic fruit directly increased the degree of solidification of the flower of essence by 20%. It was indeed amazing. Of course, the effect of such exotic fruits would be obvious for the first time. The subsequent effects would weaken or even become ineffective. However, with the 20% increase in the degree of solidification of the flower of essence, he could feel the strength of his physique growing stronger. His combat strength had also increased. Then, Chunzong took out a black flower. It was the size of a palm and looked as scary as a ghost's claw. It was covered with red veins and patterns. This was also the reward that Ghost King Xian Lai gave to Chunzong. This time, Chunzong's contribution could be said to be great. He had to be rewarded. This flower, however, was used to enhance the flower of God. Chunzong's flower of God was at the top level. The degree of solidification was 10%. Take it. The taste of the flower that looked like a ghost's claw was even stranger. It was indescribable. Chunzong could only force himself to swallow it. Immediately, an extremely spicy taste spread throughout his body. It turned into a stream of air that seemed both hot and cold. It penetrated his spirit sea and rushed out along the top of his head. It merged with the flower of God. The flower of God started to solidify bit by bit. The more solidified it was, the stronger it became. When the flower that looked like a ghost's claw was consumed, Chunzong's flower of God had also solidified from 10% to 30%. It did not look as illusory as before. Not bad. The flower of essence and the flower of God have become more solidified. My combat strength has increased by at least 30%, Chunzong thought to himself. At this level, a 30% increase in combat strength was no doubt amazing. Moreover, he was very good at turning one part of his strength into 2 or even 3 parts. In this way, the 30% increase was only superficial. In reality, the increase would be much greater. After consolidating his strength, Chunzong came out of seclusion. Without the help of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, although he could still condense the flower of extreme by himself, the efficiency would undoubtedly be very low and the speed would be very slow. As soon as he came out of seclusion, Chunzong quickly left the Ghost Blade sect and the chaotic ghost city. In the heavenly ghost wasteland, Chunzong was looking for a suitable target. The Ghost Beast King. He had just done a big job. For the next period of time, he needed to keep a low profile and try his best to increase his combat strength. In the dark, Chunzong had an ominous premonition. He also felt a gust of dense malice that seemed to be gathering from all directions to target him. Strength. He needed to be more powerful. Now, it was not good to kill his way into the ghost tribe. He could only attack the Ghost Beast King. Although the Ghost Beast King's Ghost Beast will was not as strong as that of a Ghost King, it was still far stronger than that of an upper-level ghost general. In addition, he needed a suitable target to test the power of the sword that he had comprehended. In the heavenly ghost wasteland, ghost beasts ran rampant, almost endless. There were also many Ghost Beast Kings. Not long after, Chunzong found a Ghost Beast King. He drew his sword. A sword slashed through the air, and the Ghost Beast King was struck without even noticing. In an instant, strands of sword chi were like roots breaking through a tree. They quickly spread throughout the Ghost Beast King's body, as if they had taken root. Each strand of sword chi burst forth with astonishing sharpness, wantonly destroying every part of the Ghost Beast King's body. Under normal circumstances, the Ghost Beast King's body would be stronger than the Ghost Beast Kings of the lower 18 divisions. However, it was still unable to resist Chunzong's sword. In just a breath, the Ghost Beast King's vitality was rapidly drained. Its body was also torn apart by the sword chi that looked like the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree. It died a violent death. Chapter 1895. Fourth update. In Chaos Ghost City, the Ghost Mother Tree continued to grow at a rate of 1 meter at a time. The area covered by its branches was also expanding. In the Heavenly Ghost Wasteland, Chern Zong was constantly killing ghost beasts, looking for ghost beast kings to test his sword. In the past few days, as many as 10 ghost beast kings had died under Chern Zong's sword. The ghost hunters will he obtained was equivalent to killing 5 normal ghost beast kings. It was very obvious. The sword aura he had comprehended by attaching his consciousness to the Ghost Mother Tree spread like roots, destroying all life. It was also becoming more and more perfect. It was integrated into the sword moves comprehended by the One Heart Sutra, making them more and more powerful. At the same time, Chern Zong also felt that the oppression was growing and spreading. The malice seemed to be getting more and more obvious and intense. The 36 divisions of the Ghost Clan, no, 35 divisions, were mobilized, led by the Ghost King Division. The Ghost Generals were mobilized. The Ghost Kings were mobilized. The army gathered and headed straight for Chaos Ghost City. The 35 divisions stopped fighting temporarily. Each division sent out 1 Ghost King, 1,000 Ghost Generals, and 10,000 elite Ghost Soldiers. The Black Mass quickly advanced toward the Heavenly Ghost Wasteland. 35 Ghost Kings, 35,000 Ghost Generals, and 350,000 elite Ghost Soldiers. It was as if dark clouds were pressing down, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. The momentum was so strong that it almost materialized. It was as if the ghosts covered the sky and the sun. In an instant, many Ghost Kings in the Heavenly Ghost Wasteland trembled in fear. The aura of the Ghost Clan army was too strong. Even the Ghost Beast Kings did not dare to face it head-on. They could only dodge. Chaos Ghost City also received the news. Ghost King Xian Lai gathered all the Ghost Kings in the Ghost King Alliance. There was a great disparity in strength in this battle. Should they fight or retreat? The difference in numbers between 11 Ghost Kings and 35 Ghost Kings was obvious. Moreover, the Ghost King in the lead was the first Ghost King of the Ghost King Division, Ghost King Xian Mo. That was the powerful Ghost King who had always suppressed Ghost King Xian Lai. Whenever he thought of Ghost King Xian Mo, Ghost King Xian Lai was filled with anger. Fight! Ghost King Xian Lai roared in a low voice. No one is allowed to retreat from this battle. Xian Lai's red eyes swept across the Ghost Kings, sending chills down their spines. Ghost King Xian Lai was very dangerous in this state. Since that's the case, let's fight. So what if there was a great disparity in strength? Fight to the death. With Ghost King Xian Lai as the leader, he gathered all the forces in Chaos Ghost City. Unfortunately, the time was not right. If he had more time, the Ghost Mother Tree would grow to 2,000 meters tall, and it would start to gather the power of the Ghost God. At that time, he would be able to trigger the power of the Ghost God and summon the phantoms of the Ghost God to possess him, increasing his combat power by a few fold. Assemble! The forces of the 36 Ghost Sects were all gathered in the sky above the city walls of the Chaos Ghost City. The Ghost Beasts under the command of the Ghost Beast Division were also assembled into an army. Speaking of which, the chaotic Ghost City's strength was quite good. There were over 10,000 Ghost Generals and over 1,000,000 Ghost Soldiers. The aura they gave off was quite shocking. In terms of numbers alone, they were superior to the 35 Ghost Clan armies. However, in terms of the number of powerhouses, there was a gap. This battle was extremely disadvantageous for chaotic Ghost City. However, they had no choice but to fight. Even if he escaped, where could he escape to? If the Chaos Ghost City was gone, he could build another one. However, what about the Ghost Mother Tree? It was a great stroke of luck to be able to obtain one now. Next time, there was no hope at all. One should know that they had plotted for thousands of years to obtain the Ghost Mother Tree, but they had never succeeded. Moreover, the purpose of the 35 Ghost Clan armies was obvious. They were going to completely destroy the Chaos Ghost City. In that case, let's fight. We'll do our best and fight to the death. Chen Zong felt an astonishing pressure surging like waves. It was so heavy that he found it difficult to breathe. However, at the same time, there was a surge of excitement in the depths of his heart. Perhaps after this battle, he would be able to devour enough of the Ghost Clan's will to leave the Ghost Clan and return to Tianyuan Sanctuary. However, the prerequisite was that he had to ensure that he could survive this battle. Once he died, everything would be for naught. The army pressed in like a black cloud. It was as if they were rolling over and crushing everything in their path. Their aura was unparalleled like the waves of the sea. This kind of aura was crazy and violent. It was as if they were going to crush the Ghost Clan. In comparison, Chen Zong immediately noticed the difference. Although there were more Ghost Clan soldiers in the Chaos Ghost City, the Ghost Clan soldiers were all elite. If one were to make a comparison, it was as if the other party was a well-trained regular army, while the Ghost Clan army in Chaos Ghost City was like a militia. A militia against a regular army was like a flock of sheep against a pack of wolves. Perhaps among the Ghost Clan the gap was not that big, but there was still a gap. A slight gap was enough to turn the tide of the battle. At this point, no matter what, this battle was unavoidable. They could only fight to the end. Fight, fight, fight. The will to fight grew in their hearts. Their aura surged. The Ghost Clan kings of the 35 Ghost Clans led their ghost generals and ghost soldiers to close in. They stopped when they were 10,000 meters away. The Ghost Clan kings and Xian demons flew 100 meters away. Their dark and domineering eyes swept across the crowd, bringing about an astonishing pressure. Finally, their eyes landed on the Ghost Clan king Xianlai. Chen Zong's body involuntarily trembled as the Ghost King's dark and domineering eyes swept across him. A deep chill surged from the depths of his body as he secretly became extremely vigilant. The power in his body also seemed to unconsciously circulate. How terrifying! Xianlai, give up the Chaos Ghost City and return to the headquarters. The Ghost Clan King Xian Demon spoke. His voice was slightly low, as if it contained some kind of magic. It sounded as if it directly penetrated the eardrums and went straight into the soul. Impossible! The Ghost Clan King Xianlai's face was gloomy. Of course, the skin of the Ghost Clan was pitch black, so even if it was gloomy, it could not be seen. However, from his increasingly red eyes, Xianlai was very unhappy and refused without hesitation. What did it mean to refuse? It meant to fight. Kill! The Ghost Clan King Xian Demon was obviously not a patient person. Since you don't listen to me, I'll fight until you yield. If you still don't yield, I'll have to kill you and be done with it. There was no doubt that only the Ghost Clan King Xianlai could deal with the Ghost Clan King Xian Demon. As for the Ghost Clan kings of the Ghost Clan and the Ghost Clan, they were also dealt with by the Ghost Clan kings of the Ghost Clan. Betrayal! Now it was time to settle accounts. One after another, the flowers of the extreme state appeared above the heads of the Ghost Clan kings. Chen Zong was also stared at by several eyes. One of them was the Ghost Clan king of the Ghost Blade Clan. The fact that Chen Zong had killed 3 Ghost Clan kings in a row was not a secret. It had long been spread throughout the 35 clans. Therefore, there were a total of 5 Ghost Clan kings who had their eyes on Chen Zong. An astonishing pressure swept over in an instant, making Chen Zong's face turn solemn. At the same time, there was an indescribable excitement in the depths of his heart, as if an electric current was raging. He could not help but tremble slightly, and the long sword at his waist also trembled incessantly. When the sword was unsheathed, it would kill and drink blood. The 5 Ghost Clan kings would probably allow him to devour more wills of the Ghost Clan. Among the 5 Ghost Clan kings, some were from the middle 9 clans, and some were from the upper 6 clans. The Ghost Clan king from the middle 9 clans Ghost Blade Clan was the strongest Ghost King of the Ghost Blade Clan. Ghost Blade Saber Radiance. His Ghost Blade was a long black saber. Its body was curved, and the blade was covered with fine saw-teeth. It was a very ferocious killing weapon. "What's your name?" Ghost Blade Radiance's eyes were as cold as the edge of a saber. It streaked across the void as if it was tearing Chern Zong's face apart. His voice was hoarse, but it was also as sharp as the edge of a saber, as if two sabers were constantly cutting each other. It was extremely ear-piercing. "Ghost Blade Sword Heart," Chern Zong answered neither slowly nor quickly. "Ghost Blade Sword Heart, your strength is not bad. Now return to the headquarters." Ghost Blade Radiance's voice became more and more obscure. Chern Zong did not answer again. Instead, he drew out his long sword. The unsheathing of the long sword was his answer. "Kill!" In a low voice, Ghost Blade Radiance chopped down with his long saber. The condensed dark saber light suddenly broke through the air. The saber light was strange. Its edges were like saw-teeth, and it was constantly rotating. The other four Ghost Kings also attacked from all directions, joining forces to besiege Chern Zong. In an instant, Chern Zong blocked Ghost Blade Radiance's long saber with his sword. With a twist of his wrist, he deftly and delicately guided the long saber to the side. After that, the sword edge followed the saber body and rushed forward like lightning, cutting toward Ghost Blade Radiance's hand that was holding the saber. Ghost Blade Radiance was shocked. He suddenly broke out his strength and his long saber suddenly cut horizontally. However, Chern Zong's sword slightly changed in an instant. It stopped cutting, then turned into a slash and then into a stab. In an instant, Ghost Blade Radiance felt a cold light blossoming in front of him. He had no time to dodge, and his forehead was immediately pierced. It was too fast. Moreover, the skill was very good. All the changes were within the sword, as if he had calculated everything. Among the Ghost Clan, the Ghost Blade Division had the best fighting skills. However, the skills of the number one expert of the Ghost Blade Division could not be compared at all. It was only a face-to-face encounter, but he was hit. However, such a sword could not kill him directly. As long as he had a moment, he could quickly recover. The idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. With the place where he was hit as the center, countless sword auras, like the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree breaking through the soil, crazily drilled into his flesh in an instant. It seemed that nothing could stop them. They spread all over his body, even the ends of his skin. It felt as if an extremely terrible tree had taken root in his body. His vitality was quickly extinguished, and his strength was constantly drained. This sword art was indeed a good sword art to deal with the Ghost Clan. It was only a face-to-face encounter, but one of the Ghost Kings was killed. The other four Ghost Kings were shocked. They were just one breath slower. One breath's difference was the difference between life and death. The Ghost Realm's will began to flow into Chern Zong's body, and was constantly swallowed and absorbed. The other four Ghost Kings' attacks also came from all directions. The terrible power seemed to directly smash Chern Zong's body into pieces. However, Chern Zong's body disappeared in an instant. What was broken was only a shadow. Kill. Sword art. Half-hearted. Chapter 1896. Fifth update. Before the army was assembled, the news that Chern Zong had killed 3 Ghost Kings of the upper 6 tribes with one sword had spread throughout the 35 tribes of the Ghost Clan. That was why 5 Ghost Kings joined hands to fight him. Ghost Blade, the number 1 expert of the Ghost Blade tribe, had condensed 3 flowers. One of them was a high-level flower of the extreme state, while the other 2 were mid-level flowers of the extreme state. All of them had reached the perfection level. His fighting strength was amazing, and his bladesmanship was exquisite. He was a powerful Ghost King in the upper 6 tribes. However, such an expert did not even have the time to display his powerful fighting strength and exquisite bladesmanship. He was killed in a single blow. The 4 Ghost Kings did not understand the mystery of that sword move, but they were very afraid. Even the Ghost Kings of the Ghost King tribe, who had the most powerful Ghost King power, could not kill the opponent in one blow when there was no difference in their fighting strength. Strange. Fearful. It was also because of this fear that they attacked with all their strength, intending to cripple and kill the opponent. The 4 Ghost Kings had condensed at least 2 flowers of the extreme state, which were at least mid-level or high-level. One of them had condensed 3 flowers of the perfection level. When they joined hands, their fighting strength was very strong. However, right now, Chunzong didn't need to perform the heart sword domain. With his comprehension of the profound realm of power, as long as he struck his opponent, he would be able to make his sword cheese break through the ground like the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree, instantly taking root in his opponent's body. Once the roots broke through the soil and took root, they would burst out an extremely sharp light, destroying everything and destroying everything. Chunzong's sword move had become like this as it was constantly perfected. When the sword chi entered the opponent's body, it would absorb the vitality and strengthen itself as if the flesh was the soil. Then, it would burst out and completely crush the opponent. Chunzong's figure changed, and he dodged the 4 Ghost Kings' powerful attacks. The 4 Ghost Kings also burst out their full strength. Each of them showed their different talents, and their power was amazing. Kill. Chunzong's figure turned from real to illusory, and then from illusory to real again. He swung his sword. He was hit. Another ghost was struck by a sword. Sword chi shot out like a root and instantly spread through the ghost's limbs and bones, all the way to the end of its body. The seed seemed to have sprouted in an instant. It spread out directly, covering every part of his body. It was like a real root, constantly devouring life force. The slightest mistake could lead to a great error. At this moment, it was as if he had been proven right. It was only a slight difference, but the difference between the 4 Ghost Kings and Chunzong was so obvious. Kill, kill, kill. As the second Ghost King was killed, the wills of the ghost hunters were swallowed by Chunzong. Chunzong had gained even more benefit. The swordplay of the One Heart Sutra was displayed to the extreme by Chunzong. The 3 Hearts 2 Minds sword technique was clearly more astonishing and mysterious than the One Heart sword technique. In other words, the 3 Hearts 2 Minds sword technique contained the profundity and power of the One Heart sword technique. Up until now, even the 6 lesser Imperial Divine Weapons, Imperial Divine Weapons, Imperial Divine Weapons, Imperial Divine Weapon might not be able to match the might of the 3 Hearts 2 Intense sword. When the 3 Hearts 2 Minds sword technique only targeted one target, it would be even more terrifying. Kill. The 3rd Ghost King was also killed by Chunzong's sword. As the world will of the Tianyuan sacred domain swallowed more wills of the ghost hunters, Chunzong gained an even greater boost. The more powerful he became, the more amazing the trajectory and profundity of his sword became. By now, the wills of the ghost hunters in Chunzong's body had already swallowed and absorbed a lot of wills of the ghost hunters. In addition to feeding back the pure chi of the origin, it also increased Chunzong's comprehension ability. In addition, it also brought invisible benefits to Chunzong in battle. Fighting was also practicing the sword. In a high-intensity battle, one could constantly improve oneself. Compared to not too long ago, Chunzong's battle strength had obviously improved a lot. Before long, the remaining 3 Ghost Kings were also killed by Chunzong. A large amount of wills of the ghost hunters were rapidly swallowed and absorbed by Chunzong. Streams of extremely pure origin energy flowed into Chunzong's body and hid in the depths of his body. Seeing that 5 Ghost Kings had been killed by Chunzong, the other Ghost Kings of the 35 divisions were all shocked. However, Chunzong did not stop at all. His figure flashed, and his sword slashed through the air. The way of the sword that he had comprehended from the growth of the Ghost Mother Tree was extremely superb. When it was integrated into his sword, the sword chi instantly spread throughout his body like roots breaking through the soil. It took root in every inch of his flesh and blood, causing shocking destruction. The destruction of a single wisp of sword chi was nothing to the Ghost Clan, a clan with amazing vitality. Only when multiple wisps of sword chi were combined at the same time could it cause fatal damage to the Ghost Clan. The disadvantage was that the sword had to hit the opponent. In other words, it had to be close combat in order to bring out the superb ingenuity of this sword technique. But for now it was enough. In the chaotic Ghost City, Ghost King Xian Lai and Ghost King Xian Mo were fighting fiercely, but were gradually being suppressed. The strength of Ghost King Xian Mo was too shocking and incomparably powerful. It could be said that except for Chen Zong, the other Ghost Kings were all at a disadvantage. This was because this battle was not one against one, but many against one. Siege. It was in imminent danger. After Chen Zong killed the 5 Ghost Kings, he immediately went to reinforce the nearest Ghost King. Although he called it reinforcement, it was only on the surface. The real purpose was, of course, that Chen Zong wanted to absorb more of the Ghost Realm's will. The Ghost Realm's will carried by the Ghost Kings was undoubtedly stronger. Kill. The 7th Ghost King died under his sword. Suddenly, an extremely strong sense of danger emerged. Chen Zong's hair stood on end. His skin seemed to have burst open, and his hair stood on end. A bone-chilling coldness surged from his bone marrow and soul like a torrent bursting a dam. Ghost King Xian Mo slashed across the air while suppressing Ghost King Xian Lai. A pitch-black saber light tore through the air like a crescent moon and attacked Chen Zong. Ghost King Xian Mo had condensed 3 supreme flowers. 2 of them were top-level supreme flowers. His combat strength was incomparably shocking and frighteningly strong. This attack immediately made Chen Zong feel a strong sense of danger engulfing him. It was like a monstrous wave that was about to drown him. The surrounding void was directly sealed and suppressed. There was no way to dodge. Chen Zong's expression was solemn. He slashed out with his sword. The illusions on his body suddenly appeared and dimmed. In the next moment, as if he had surpassed the limit, a third illusion appeared. The sword of 3 hearts 2 minds. Kill. The sword light shot out and instantly converged into one. Its power reached its peak. Under Chen Zong's sword, the vacuum was directly torn apart like a thin piece of paper. The sword light and the palm blade collided in an instant and exploded. It was as if a 10,000-ton volcano had spewed out an astonishing amount of magma. The instantaneous power caused countless cracks to appear in the vacuum, spreading out in all directions. An extremely terrifying aftershock spread out, shattering everything. It felt as if that part of the void had been forcibly erased by a mighty force. It took a while for it to recover. Ghost King Xian Mo was also very shocked that Chen Zong had blocked his attack. Was this really a Ghost King from the Ghost Blade division? How could he have such a strong combat strength? Ghost King Xian Lai was also shocked. He did not expect that there was someone with such amazing combat strength in his Ghost King alliance. Chen Zong was not the 4th seat, but the 2nd seat. He was second only to Ghost King Xian Lai, and could even be compared with Ghost King Xian Lai. With such combat strength, Ghost King Xian Lai might be able to survive this crisis. Although Chen Zong had blocked Ghost King Xian Mo's attack, he had no intention of fighting with him. He instantly escaped and appeared in another place to attack the other Ghost Kings. Now, Chen Zong's purpose was to kill the other Ghost Kings and devour the wills of the Ghost Realm. It would be more efficient to kill those with weaker combat strength first. He wandered and killed everywhere. The 8th Ghost King also died under Chen Zong's sword. His will of the Ghost Realm was devoured and absorbed by Chen Zong. In an instant, silently, a black light pierced through the void with incomparable sharpness, and fiercely stabbed at Chen Zong's back. It was the Ghost King of the Ghost Shadow Division. The talent of the Ghost Shadow Division was that they could turn into shadows and blend into the void, making them undetectable and then attack. This kind of attack was very unexpected. Like a peerless assassin, it would hit the target with one strike. Along with the black light, a shadow appeared. It was the shadow of the Ghost King. There was a ferocious look on his face. His attack would pierce through his opponent's back and tear his opponent's body apart. Suddenly, the tip of a sword penetrated the void and appeared in an instant, as if it was assisted by God. It seemed that it had been waiting there for a long time. The sound was extremely crisp and pleasing to the ear. But when the Ghost King of the Ghost Shadow Division heard it, it was like the sound of death. His expression changed greatly. He blocked it. His deliberate attack had actually been blocked. How could this be? Retreat. His fatal attack was blocked. He could only retreat. If he did not retreat, it would be very dangerous. In an instant, the Ghost King turned into a shadow again and blended into the void. But Chen Zong's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. Escape. Could he escape? The sword blended into the void, as if it was submerged into water, but there was no ripple. The Ghost King of the Ghost Shadow Division let out a miserable cry. His body turned into a shadow, and then into a substance. Fine sword chi veins could be seen all over his body. His vitality was extinguished. The 9th Ghost King was dead. 35 Ghost Kings attacked, but 9 of them were killed by Chen Zong's sword. The other Ghost Kings were extremely frightened. What kind of swordsmanship and power was that? Just one stab and they were dismembered and killed. It was too terrifying. The other Ghost Kings of the chaotic Ghost City were all suppressed. Except for the Ghost King Xianlai, they were all injured. But when they saw Ghost Blade Jinshin kill 9 Ghost Kings in a row, they were shocked and excited. The wills of the 9 Ghost Kings were devoured, and the feedback was 9 streams of pure energy. Chen Zong only felt that one of his origins was constantly growing. When it grew to a certain extent, it affected the condensation of the essence flower. 70%. Previously, the condensation of the essence flower was 50%. Because of his continuous fighting, it increased to 60%. Now, with the feedback, it reached 70%. His battle strength was further improved. Sure enough, fighting was the best way to improve oneself. Chen Zong stared at the 10th Ghost King, but he was attacked and locked by an extremely terrifying murderous aura. A sharp black light, with an extremely shocking murderous intent, tore through the sky in an instant. It was the Ghost King of the Ghost Killing Division. This was the Ghost King who was second only to the Ghost King Xianmo. Chapter 1897. 6th Update. As the title, in order to thank the 2 leaders of this book, Sword Tao V5 and Arvin Liu, 4 more monthly vote. Go, go, go. By the way, you can follow the official account of the 6 DAO, see the latest news of the 6 DAO, and interact with the 6 DAO. The Ghost King of the Geisha tribe had mastered the power of Geisha. This kind of power had an unparalleled killing intent, which was terrifying and targeted at everything between heaven and earth. Everything could be killed. The power of Geisha was extremely overbearing and ferocious. Among the Ghost Clan, only the Ghost King could really resist it. The Ghost Underworld tribe's Ghost Underworld tribe could only contend with it. This shocking killing intent directly locked onto Chen Zong through the void, making it impossible for Chen Zong to dodge. He couldn't avoid it. Since he couldn't avoid it, he would fight. Who would kill who? The black light with the extreme killing intent broke through the void. Chen Zong looked solemn and sincerely waved his sword. Rumble. This sword was not as silent and colorless as before, which merged into the void. Instead, it attracted wind and thunder. The single-hearted sword and single-hearted sword, which were comprehended by the One Heart Sutra, were Chen Zong's superb application of the heart sword essence. They were just names. The soundless sword was mysterious and fast. It was hard to guard against it, but the sword with the wind and thunder was full of power. Fast and slow, strong and weak, everything was in his mind and under his control. The extremely powerful sword swept across like wind and thunder, destroying everything in all directions. In an instant, the black light with the incomparable killing intent was hit and shattered. The sword light, which was like a violent storm, destroyed everything in its path and rushed toward the Ghost King of the Guisha tribe. The Ghost King of the Guisha tribe was the strongest in the Ghost King tribe. He had condensed 1 top-level flower and 2 high-level flowers. In terms of combat strength, he was almost comparable to Ghost King Xianlai. A strong opponent. This was a strong opponent. The sword slashed through the air and the void cracked, making a shocking sound. The Ghost King of the Guisha tribe was extremely fast. He dodged in an instant and turned into a peerless black light, approaching Chen Zong. The shocking killing intent surged like a tide and drowned Chen Zong. Amidst the surging black waves, they condensed in an instant. After a slight pause, an incomparably sharp black light pierced through the air. It was extremely ferocious, and its murderous intent could annihilate everything. This was a sure kill strike, a strike that pressed forward courageously. All living beings in the world would tremble and be annihilated before this strike. However, a flash of sword light suddenly appeared, as if it had been waiting for a long time, or as if it had been rehearsed thousands of times, blocking the attack. Then, he retracted his finger and stabbed out once more. It was silent and extremely fast. He was hit by the sword. The Ghost King of the Guisha tribe was hit by the sword, and the terrible sword chi immediately spread out. Like the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree breaking through the soil, the sword chi was about to take root in the Ghost King's body and wreak havoc. However, a powerful force erupted and suppressed the sword chi that had invaded his body, preventing it from spreading out. The ghost killing power. This was the unique ghost killing power of the Guisha tribe, which was extremely powerful. The sword chi was suppressed and attacked all of a sudden. It could not cause more damage, and was quickly obliterated by the ghost killing power. Chen Zong could clearly feel the sword chi being obliterated. His expression changed slightly and his eyes focused. The power of this strike was beyond doubt after killing so many Ghost Kings in a row. But now it had lost its effect. The Ghost King of the Guisha tribe was indeed terrifying. The ghost-killing power was extremely powerful. The Ghost King of the Guisha tribe attacked again. Even if he was hit by the sword, he would not suffer any obvious injuries. So, he was not afraid of Chen Zong's sword. In this case, he could attack without any worries. The black light spread out and turned into countless fine blades, attacking Chen Zong from all directions. Every tiny blade contained an extremely terrifying might, tearing apart and slicing through everything. It was as if it wanted to slice Chen Zong into pieces. This caused Chen Zong's expression to turn solemn and his entire body to turn cold. He only felt that his entire body was exuding a shocking coldness. It seemed that he was going to be cut into pieces. Brandishing the sword, half-hearted, 3 illusions flashed across his body and seemed to gather in an instant. In an instant, it seemed that several Chen Zong were brandishing their swords at the same time, blocking all the attacks coming from all directions. All of the tiny blade lights were blocked, and there was nothing they could do about it. Heart Realm. In an instant, the Heart Realm spread out and then contracted into the Heart Sword intent. It expanded in an instant and covered 1,000 meters. Heart Sword Realm. The Ghost King of the Guisha tribe was very powerful and difficult to deal with. It was impossible to kill him with only one strike. So, he had to perform a more powerful sword move. Heart Sword Realm. 1,000 swords greeting. 1,000 sword chi were suddenly condensed in the Heart Sword Realm. Under the sword silk technique, they became finer sword silk. Kill. In an instant, under the control of Chen Zong, 1,000 sword chi broke through the air and attacked the Ghost King of the Guisha tribe. Every single strand of sword chi was extremely condensed. Every single strand of sword chi contained an extremely terrifying sharpness, piercing through and tearing apart everything. Fast. Extremely fast. Undodgeable fast. In an instant, the Ghost King of the Guisha tribe was covered in a black light. Endless killing intent condensed on his body like waves of blades, protecting him firmly. In an instant, some sword chi was shattered, but some sword chi penetrated the defense and penetrated into the Ghost King's body. Hundreds of sword chi were blocked, but hundreds of sword chi still penetrated into the Ghost King's body and destroyed it wantonly. Destruction. Tearing. Penetrating. The Ghost King trembled because of the severe pain. Soul-hearted sword intent. The sword blended into the void and attacked at the fastest speed with the most difficult trajectory. In an instant, the Ghost King's head flew up high. Soul-hearted sword intent. As the illusions flashed, Chen Zong brandished his sword again. Rumble. Wherever it passed, the vacuum collapsed, darkness spread, and a terrifying aura filled the air. This sword was extremely powerful. It seemed to be condensed with an endless amount of sword chi. It went berserk in an instant, and everything would be destroyed by this sword. Wherever the heart went, the sword would go. It was invincible and nothing could not be destroyed. Invincible. The wounded Ghost King of the Guisha tribe was immediately hit by this majestic and domineering sword light. He only paused for a moment and then immediately shattered into countless pieces. Devour. In an instant, the will of the world in Chen Zong's body immediately devoured the will of the Ghost Realm from the Ghost King of the Guisha tribe. How could it be? The Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe was shocked. The Ghost King and Xian Demon were also shocked. He was killed. This was simply incredible. Pure, rich, and majestic, the will of the Ghost Realm was amazing. It was almost comparable to the will of the Ghost Realm after the Ghost Mother Tree of the Ghost Forest tribe was destroyed. This was the will of the Ghost Realm carried by the top Ghost King. Cool. The feeling was incomparably cool, as if there was an endless power flowing into his body. Chen Zong felt that his body was full of extremely powerful strength. But this was just an illusion. His strength did not increase. It was just because he carried the will of the world, and the will of the world suddenly devoured many wills of the Ghost Realm, which made him feel that his strength was expanding. At the same time, a stream of pure power was constantly flowing into Chen Zong's body, accumulating and dormant. With his eyes flashing extremely sharp, Chen Zong looked at the other Ghost Kings. Heart Sword Realm, thousands of swords greeting. In an instant, thousands of sword chi broke through the air again. This time, they directly attacked the Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe. In addition to the Ghost King and Xian Demon of the Ghost King tribe, this Ghost King was the second strongest among the invading Ghost Kings. He also carried many wills of the Ghost Realm. Seeing that the Ghost King of the Ghost Killing tribe, whose battle strength was equal to his, was killed directly, the Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe was already prepared. When he became the target, he retreated without hesitation and flew away at an amazing speed. He also blasted out a cloud of black strength, which rolled like a tide, trying to intercept the thousands of swords greeting. The Ghost King and Xian Demon also attacked at the same time. He could suppress the Ghost King Xian Lai and help the Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe, which was really amazing. Chen Zong immediately controlled the thousands of sword chi to change their direction and attack the Ghost King and Xian Demon. Because it was difficult to catch up with the Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe, he would attack the Ghost King of the Ghost King tribe. The thousands of sword chi immediately threatened the Ghost King and Xian Demon, who looked a little serious. The Ghost King Xian Lai also seized the opportunity to gather a strong power and launch an extremely violent attack. The power of the Ghost King was completely activated. Failure. The thousands of sword chi collided with the powerful attack of the Ghost King and Xian Demon and exploded. The Ghost King and Xian Demon also retreated dozens of meters in an instant and had to face the powerful attack of the Ghost King Xian Lai. Since it had failed, Chen Zong did not launch the thousands of swords greeting for the third time, because it consumed too much energy. While operating his cultivation method to absorb energy to recover, he held his sword and attacked the other Ghost Kings. Except for the Ghost King and Xian Demon, the dead Ghost King of the Ghost-Killing tribe and the Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe, the sword that he comprehended from the growth of the root of the Ghost Mother Tree was a great threat to the other Ghost Kings. He used the least amount of energy to launch the most lethal attack. The situation was tilting in the favor of the chaotic Ghost City. Logically speaking, the 35 Ghost Kings should be able to completely suppress the 11 Ghost Kings. Even if the Ghost Kings had amazing vitality and were difficult to kill, they should be able to suppress and destroy them. However, they did not expect a terrifying Ghost King to appear. It was unbelievable. Since the beginning of the battle, 10 Ghost Kings had been killed, and one of them was the top expert of the Ghost-Killing tribe. That swordsmanship was too terrifying. One strike, one kill. The thousands of swords greeting was simply irresistible. The battle between the Ghost Kings was fierce, and so was the battle between the Ghost Generals and the Ghost Soldiers. Almost every second a ghost would die. Compared to the Ghost Kings, the bodies of the Ghost Soldiers and Ghost Generals were not as strong, and their self-healing abilities were not as strong. They were more likely to die. After all, the Ghost Kings had condensed the flower of extreme state. The condensation of the flower of extreme state represented a qualitative change, an essential change, similar to the transition of life. The black aura spread in all directions. The battle between hundreds of thousands of Ghost Kings and millions of Ghost Kings was extremely terrifying. Many ghost beasts who were far away retreated, fearing that they would be killed by the battle. With every breath, there would be ghosts dying, and with every breath, there would be ghosts who would become stronger. Devour. Before reaching the Ghost King level, the Ghost Clan relied on devouring to increase their strength. After reaching the Ghost King level, devouring alone would not be effective, and they would need to constantly train themselves. Chapter 1898. The Dominator of the Six Paths will continue to write. Later, I will add another update for the new Guild Master. If the Dominator of the Six Paths rises to 17th place, I will add another update. Keep going, hot-blooded youngsters. The Dominator of the Six Paths secret technique will only last until midnight tonight. The potential of the Heart Sword Will was astonishing. Chen Zong continued to fight and kill. The more he developed the potential of the Heart Sword Will, the stronger the power he could unleash. In terms of potential, the Heart Sword Will was unparalleled. It could cause the Heavenly Flower vision and the sound of the Great Path to be at an extremely high level. In fact, it was much more powerful than the peak flower of the Supreme Realm. The reason why it was said to be similar to the peak flower of the Supreme Realm was that its potential had not been developed enough. However, as Chen Zong continued to comprehend and fight, his potential was also developed and deepened. Every sword strike contained an astonishing amount of power. Chen Zong's expression was indifferent. His eyes were as sharp as the tip of a sword. The astonishing sharpness became more and more condensed. Extreme power, extreme power. As Chen Zong continued to fight, his strength did not continue to be depleted. Instead, it recovered bit by bit as he continued to circulate his cultivation technique. Fury! The Ghost King Xian Mo fully unleashed his combat strength. Black light filled the air and condensed into a huge ghost hand. In an instant, it blasted out and sent the Ghost King Xian flying. The combat strength of the two was relatively obvious. After sending the Ghost King Xian flying, the Ghost King Xian Mo turned into a ray of black light. It was as mighty as a black void torrent. With an astonishing momentum, it charged toward Chen Zong. Personally attacking. The Ghost King Xian Mo was going to personally deal with Chen Zong. An extremely strong sense of danger swept over like waves. Chen Zong's glabella suddenly trembled. The Heart Sword Will also trembled. The attack of a strong enemy made Chen Zong's fighting spirit surge from the bottom of his heart. Chen Zong's figure flashed. Not only did he not dodge, but he also met the attack head-on. He slashed out with his sword. The sword light condensed like a line between the sea and the sky. The sword chi was vast and extremely sharp. It tore through the void and directly attacked the Ghost King Xian Mo. However, the Ghost King Xian Lai, who had been sent flying, charged towards the Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe and started a fierce battle. He vented all of his anger that had been suppressed by the Ghost King Xian Mo and attacked wildly, forcing the Ghost King of the Ghost Underworld tribe to retreat continuously. The Ghost King Xian Mo reached out his hand. Black light condensed like a layer, as if it was a layer of armor. His powerful physique and the power of the Ghost King gave him astonishing defensive power, so he was not injured at all. After shattering the sword chi, the palm covered in black light pierced through the air. A rumbling sound was heard continuously, like a vast and mighty thunderbolt, its power astonishing. An extremely frightening aura fluctuation was emitted from the palm that was constantly bombarding. It suppressed the surrounding void, sealing everything and imprisoning everything. Xian 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 Mo Xian 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 Mo Xian Ghost the Ghost. Ghost Xian Xian Mo Xian. This was the strongest power of the Ghost Clan. It was a power that was much stronger than the other Ghost Clans. It was also because of the power of the Ghost King that the Ghost King tribe could be ranked at the top of the 36 tribes. Even the Ghost Killing tribe and the Ghost Underworld tribe could not be compared to them. The Taichu sword essence was extremely condensed as it lashed out. The space was torn apart, and the seal was also cut open by Chen Zong's sword. His figure flashed, and a sword flew through the air, directly attacking. As soon as the battle began, Chen Zong immediately felt a great pressure. The Ghost King and Mysterious Demon's attacks were extremely tyrannical and terrifying. It made him feel as if he was carrying a huge mountain on his back. This kind of weight made Chen Zong feel that the strength he used to wield his sword was several times more than usual. He concentrated all of his strength and continued to fight. Pressure could also be converted into motivation. Suddenly, the Ghost King Xian Mo opened his arms, and endless black light burst out from his extremely strong body. It was like a torrential flood that swept out in a mighty manner. In an instant, it covered a radius of thousands of meters and dyed the space into a dark void. Chen Zong only felt that the pressure on his body had increased several times in an instant. It was like a domain. Endless pressure poured from all directions, as if to crush Chen Zong. Heart Sword Realm. Without hesitation, Chen Zong immediately activated the Heart Sword Realm. The 1,000-meter sword realm surrounded him, and the amazing pressure was immediately offset. 1,000 swords greeting. 1,000 streaks of sword chi also condensed in an instant. Sword Silk. The sword chi was condensed to the extreme. It tore the void and countless fine black cracks appeared. Kill. 1,000 streaks of sword chi broke through the air and mercilessly attacked the Ghost King and Mysterious Demon. The Ghost King and Mysterious Demon roared in a low voice. He suddenly closed his arms and the black light spread, enveloping his entire body without any blind spots. 1,000 streaks of extremely sharp sword chi shot at the black light. A portion of the sword chi was immediately shattered, but the rest of the sword chi pierced through it and attacked the Ghost King and Mysterious Demon. However, after breaking through the layer of black light protection, the power of the sword chi decreased significantly. Condense! Chen Zong roared in a low voice. His divine sense exploded, and his eyes flickered and condensed. The shattered sword chi in the Heart Sword Realm gathered again in an instant. Although it was less than 1,000 streaks, there were still more than 300 streaks. At least, he could conserve his strength more. This was also an ability that Chen Zong had slowly mastered through continuous battles. In an instant, the sword chi was replenished to 1,000 streak. They circled around, but did not attack again. Chen Zong's eyes flickered incessantly, and his mind worked at lightning speed. 1,000 streaks of sword chi in the heart sword realm were obviously very powerful against the Ghost Kings. However, it was not enough to deal with the Ghost King and mysterious demon. To increase its power, he could increase the number of sword chi. He had named this move Thousand Swords Greeting, but in reality, there were only 1,000 streaks of sword chi. The real Thousand Swords Greeting should have at least 10,000 streaks of sword chi. If he could increase the number of sword chi from 1,000 to 10,000 streaks, there was no doubt that the power would increase greatly. However, Chen Zong had tried before. It was very difficult to increase the number of sword chi. The appearance of the heart sword realm could be said to be an experiment that he had suddenly come up with. The result was unexpected. Now, it was not so easy to increase the power of the heart sword realm. At the very least, he had yet to fully understand and master the heart sword realm. Since he could not increase the number of sword chi to increase the power of the heart sword realm, he could only take the second path, condense. It was too scattered. Now that he had 1,000 streaks of sword chi, it was indeed very powerful. However, it was not enough because it was scattered. If he could gather all 1,000 streaks of sword chi and compress them into one streak, its power might increase greatly. However, it would be more difficult to condense them into one streak. Let's give it a try. It might work. People would often break through their own limits under desperate circumstances. This was especially true for true geniuses and geniuses. Condense. Condense. In an instant, 1,000 streaks of sword chi gathered at an astonishing speed. Chen Zong immediately felt an astonishing resistance. The closer the 1,000 streaks of sword chi were to each other, the more astonishing the resistance between them was. The Ghost King Xian Mo's attack also smashed through the vacuum, causing the heart sword realm to tremble. Chen Zong had no choice but to dodge, and the 1,000 streaks of sword chi were scattered. It's difficult to achieve success by simply condensing them. There needs to be technique. Chen Zong thought to himself. However, he did not counterattack because the Ghost King Xian Mo's combat power was astonishing. It would be difficult for his counterattack to kill the Ghost King Xian Mo. In an instant, Chen Zong thought of the Royal Divine Weapon. The way the Royal Divine Weapon was combined could be used as a reference. Inspiration surged in his mind. In an instant, 1,000 streaks of sword chi fluctuated in a unique way. They were either straight or zigzagging as they condensed towards the center. Chen Zong could feel that the resistance between the sword chi had disappeared due to the unique trajectory. Condense. Chen Zong went all out. His divine sense exploded, and the potential of the heart sword essence was further stimulated. 1,000 streaks of sword chi condensed into one. The original 1,000 streaks of sword chi were very fine, even finer than silk. After condensing, they turned into a streak of sword chi that was as thick as a chopstick. It fluctuated endlessly and emitted a terrifying sharpness. The sword chi stopped within the heart sword domain, but the sharpness it exuded tore through the surrounding space, leaving cracks in the surrounding space. Chen Zong could feel that the power contained in the streak of sword chi was extremely terrifying. Moreover, he felt that it was difficult to completely control it. It was as if he was holding a struggling python in his hand. A silver light flashed in Chen Zong's eyes. He immediately activated the freedom state and completely controlled the streak of sword chi. Kill. With a thought, the streak of sword chi suddenly shot out at an even faster speed than before. The Ghost King Xian demon had just sensed it. The moment the black light swept over, it was immediately torn apart and pierced through, along with its body. However, Chen Zong discovered that although the sword chi had pierced through the Ghost King Xian demon's body and caused damage, the damage was not severe. With the Ghost King Xian demon's tyrannical body and strength, He was able to withstand it and recover in a short time. He controlled the streak of sword chi and immediately shot it from behind into the Ghost King Xian demon's body. This time, it did not penetrate the body. Instead, it immediately dispersed after entering the body. 1,000 streaks of sword chi immediately exploded in the Ghost King Xian demon's body, rushing in all directions and frantically strangling him. With this blow, the Ghost King Xian demon could not help but tremble violently. Blood spurted from his mouth. In a flash, Chunzong swung his sword. It was invisible and colorless, but it directly attacked the Ghost King Xian demon. The sword chi raged in the Ghost King Xian demon's body, causing severe pain and serious injuries. Faced with Chunzong's sword, he could not completely avoid it. As his body tilted, one of his arms was suddenly cut off and flew high into the air. In an instant, Chunzong swung his sword a second time. The Ghost King Xian demon's complexion changed greatly. Without hesitation, he immediately flew back. At this moment, it was not suitable to fight again. This Ghost King from the Ghost Blade division was really too strange. He completely broke common sense and the beliefs that he had lived for many years. However, the Ghost King Xian demon did not suspect that the other party was not from the Ghost clan. He would never have thought that the other party was actually from the human clan disguised as a Ghost clan member. Otherwise, if the other party was really from the Ghost clan, how could he have such amazing ability? He would have been suppressed by him long ago. He escaped. Chunzong's eyes narrowed slightly, but he did not chase after the Ghost King Xian demon because his strength was almost exhausted. In fact, he could not do anything to the Ghost King Xian demon even if he chased after him. Seeing that the most powerful Ghost King Xian demon had escaped, the other Ghost Kings were horrified. One by one, they flew back without hesitation and quickly fled. Chapter 1899. Author's Note. This chapter has been updated for the new Guild Masters of League of Gods, Lian Feng Shiyu and 778 Juju. Thank you for your support. Please pay attention to the official account. 6 Dao of Depravity, and add 6 Dao's WeChat account. Take advantage of the victory. The Chaos Ghost City's army chased after them relentlessly, crushing the 35 Ghost Tribes' allied army. Chunzong didn't stop either. With the little power he had left, he could still use it to the extreme under the self-freedom state. It was as if he was at the peak of his power. Kill, kill, devour. Another 3 Ghost Kings died under Chunzong's sword. The other Ghost Kings fled. During the chase, Chunzong killed thousands of ghost generals and ghost soldiers. Seeing the ghost army fleeing, Chunzong also used up the last bit of his power to deactivate the self-freedom state. He kept using his cultivation method to absorb the power around him. The worlds will converted it to recover his power at an amazing speed. In just 10 breaths, Chunzong recovered 10% of his power and had amazing combat power again. Thinking of this battle, Chunzong couldn't help but smile. The harvest was great. It was beyond imagination. In total, he killed 13 powerful Ghost Kings. The Ghost Realm's will that he devoured was amazing. As for the dead Ghost Generals and Ghost Soldiers, the Ghost Realm's will was nothing. Chunzong could feel that the will of the world on his body seemed to be emitting a feeling of satisfaction after eating its fill. If he hunted the Ghost Kings alone, it would be very difficult to kill 13 of them. After all, most of the Ghost Kings would only stay in the Ghost Cities. They wouldn't leave easily. Once he went to the Ghost Cities to challenge the Ghost Kings. If he lost, it was very likely that he would activate the Ghost Realm's power and summon the Ghost Realm's shadow to possess him. His combat power would increase by several times. Moreover, with the Ghost Realm's shadow, even if he was destroyed, he would recover instantly with the help of the Ghost Realm's power. He was immortal. In that case, it would be more difficult for him to kill the Ghost Kings and devour the Ghost Realm's will. It was also possible to kill the ghost tribes below the Ghost King and devour the Ghost Realm's will. However, killing 100,000 ghosts was not as effective as killing a Ghost King. Sure enough, entering Chaos Ghost City and using it to create chaos in the Ghost Realm was the right thing to do. Otherwise, how could he devour so many Ghost Realm wills in such a short time? Unfortunately, most of them still managed to escape. If he could kill all 35 Ghost Kings, the Ghost Hunters' will he could devour would be many times more. Chunzong thought with some regret. But in fact, it was a big surprise to be able to get such a reward this time. However, he reckoned that it would be very difficult for him to obtain such a great harvest in the future. Chunzong was secretly overjoyed. While he was deep in thought, the other Ghost Kings breathed a sigh of relief. He had survived a disaster. Originally, they thought that this would be a fight to the death. The final result would be to be suppressed or killed, and the city would be destroyed. However, they did not expect Ghost Blade Jinshin's fighting strength to be so terrifying that even the most powerful Ghost King Xian demon had been beaten away. For a moment, the 10 Ghost Kings stared at Chunzong with complicated expressions. Ghost King Xian Lai's eyes flickered with an obscure light, seemingly suffused with a trace of killing intent. He betrayed the Ghost King tribe because he did not want to be under the Ghost King Xian demon. In Chaos Ghost City, he was the most powerful and had the strongest fighting strength. But now, a Ghost King from the Ghost Blade tribe actually had a stronger fighting strength than him. This made him feel a sense of crisis. He felt that his status in Chaos Ghost City had been affected and impacted. Most of the Ghost Clan worshipped the strong and would naturally submit to the strong. If Xian Lai wanted to take over Chaos Ghost City, many ghosts would be willing to follow him. These 10 Ghost Kings, including Ghost King Xian Lai, were all injured. The only difference was the severity of their injuries. Those who were seriously injured had broken bodies. Those who were at death's door were like candles in the wind. However, the Ghost Clan's vitality was very tenacious. As long as they were not dead, they would recover after a period of time. Chunzong glanced at them. There was a faint flash of light in his eyes, but they did not notice it. Chaos Ghost City had won this battle. However, they had lost many ghost soldiers and ghost generals. The loss was great. They would need to recuperate from now on. After this battle, the 35 ghost tribes would not invade again in a short period of time. Chunzong immediately returned to the Ghost Blade sect to cultivate in seclusion. The more he battled, especially when he battled against someone with strong combat strength, the more obvious the tempering effect it brought him. In addition, the will of the world was constantly devouring the will of the Ghost Realm to strengthen itself. It also imperceptibly improved Chunzong's comprehension ability temporarily. Every moment there would be a burst of inspiration. As his understanding of the One Heart Sutra deepened, the potential of the Heart Sword essence was also constantly developed. Invisibly, his fighting strength was also constantly improving. When he entered Chaos Ghost City, his fighting strength was not as good as the third seat. But now it had slightly surpassed Ghost King Xian Lai. His own foundation, the invisible enhancement of the will of the world, and the profound mystery of the One Heart Sutra. Chunzong was completely sure that the inheritance of the One Heart Sutra was not inferior to the Heart Sword seal that he had obtained in the past. The inheritance of the One Heart True Monarch from the Will Heavenly Palace, a top force in the void of the universe, was indeed very superior. It completely surpassed the Heaven and Earth Sutra of the Eternal Battle Fort. It was much more brilliant. Compared to the God-Fiend Azura battle technique that his doppelganger Chen Xiu had inherited, it was not inferior at all. The purpose of cultivating in seclusion was naturally to summarize the gains from this battle. Even if he could not immediately improve his fighting strength, he could still further strengthen his accumulation and foundation, and lay a more solid foundation for the next improvement. The other ghost kings also went into seclusion. Those who were recovering from their injuries were recovering, and those who were cultivating were cultivating. The ghost mother tree was constantly growing. It's already 1,500 meters tall. Looks like it will grow to 2,000 meters in a few days. I wonder what level it will reach in the end? Chen Zong's figure flickered, silently passing by the side of the ghost mother tree. After cultivating in seclusion and tidying up, his foundation was more solid. Imperceptibly, his understanding of the One Heart Sutra deepened, and the potential of the Heart Sword essence was also more developed. Even the flower of essence and flower of God were condensed by 10%. In other words, Chen Zong's fighting strength had increased by a lot. Then, it was time to act. This time, he was going to attack the 10 Ghost Kings in the Chaos Ghost City one after another. If Chen Zong was a real Ghost Clan member, of course, he would not do this. However, Chen Zong was not a Ghost Clan member, but a human who temporarily transformed into a Ghost Clan member. He was a human who entered the Ghost Clan to devour the Ghost Clan's will. Now that it was difficult to attack the 35 divisions of the Ghost Clan, then, he would attack the Ghost Kings in the Chaos Ghost City. He would kill all of them and devour the Ghost Clan's will in them. However, Chen Zong's actions were secretive. He could not attract the attention of the other Ghost Kings. Otherwise, he might have to face the 10 Ghost Kings. Even if the 10 Ghost Kings joined forces, Chen Zong was not afraid. However, it would increase the difficulty of killing them. His first target was Ghost Flame Lai Shan of the Ghost Flame Division. He was seriously injured and could not recover in a short time. Chen Zong scanned the area with his divine sense and found Ghost Flame Lai Shan's location. He sneaked in silently and was not discovered by the other Ghost Clan members. The Ghost Kings did not expect that Ghost Blade Jianxin would attack them. Ghost Flame Lai Shan was seriously injured. In just a few days, he had recovered a lot with the amazing vitality of the Ghost Clan. He estimated that he would be fully recovered in a few days. Appearing, Chen Zong unsheathed his sword and stabbed Ghost Flame Lai Shan silently. The terrifying sword qi spread out like the roots of the Ghost Mother Tree and directly tore Ghost Flame Lai Shan into countless pieces. Chen Zong killed him, devouring the Ghost Clan's will. Then, Chen Zong left silently and went to the place where the second Ghost King was cultivating in seclusion. 1, 2, 3. This kind of killing was very easy and he could continuously devour the Ghost Clan's will. To Chen Zong, it was very satisfying. Soon, 9 of the 10 Ghost Kings were killed by Chen Zong. Only one was left, and he was also the most powerful one, Ghost King Xianlai. Ghost King Xianlai's injuries had already healed. His battle strength had completely recovered to its peak. He was very terrifying. His eyes wandered as he thought about how to deal with Ghost Blade Jianxin. With such a Ghost King, he could not sit still. He was afraid that Ghost Blade Jianxin would seize the sovereignty of Ghost City. But, how could he attack? Ghost Blade Jianxin's battle strength was very strange. Even Ghost King Xian Mo escaped with serious injuries. He was not confident that he could kill Ghost Blade Jianxin even if he joined forces with the other Ghost Kings. Ghost King Xianlai kept thinking. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps rang out. With every step, there would be a light sound of footstep. It seemed to have some sort of rhythm, causing Ghost King Xianlai's expression to change slightly. He felt as if there was an invisible foot stepping on his heart, causing it to thump slightly. Ghost King Jianxin, what's the matter? Ghost King Xianlai hid his killing intent and asked with a smile. Kill you. Chen Zong's answer was very direct. It was so direct that Ghost King Xianlai did not expect it. He did not know how to answer. Chen Zong did not give Ghost King Xianlai much time. State of freedom. Heart Sword Realm. Without hesitation, he immediately released the Heart Sword Realm and condensed 1,000 fine sword qi. Ghost King Xianlai's battle strength was amazing. If he wanted to kill him in the same way as before, it would be impossible. After all, the Ghost Kings of the Ghost King tribe were very powerful. Therefore, he could only choose to attack him directly and kill him with the Heart Sword realm. He was now in his peak state. 1,000 swords greeting. 10,000 swords in one. In an instant, 1,000 sword chi condensed into one. Under Chen Zong's control, it tore through the air and shot towards Ghost King Xianlai. Too fast. It was completely unexpected. Ghost King Xianlai was horrified, but he could not avoid it. He was instantly hit by the sword chi. The sword chi entered his body and exploded, crazily attacking his body. Another 1,000 sword chi appeared and condensed into one. Once again, it shot out and penetrated Ghost King Xianlai's body. The sword chi exploded. Ghost King Xianlai was severely injured by the 2 consecutive sword chi of the 1,000 swords greeting. In a flash, Chen Zong closed in and attacked with his sword. His limbs were cut off and his head was chopped off. Ghost King Xianlai did not have time to display his powerful battle strength. Under the sword chi of the 1,000 swords greeting, he lost the ability to resist. Death. Death was the end for Ghost King Xianlai. The 1,000 swords greeting was very powerful. Once the sword chi entered the body and exploded, the Ghost King would not be able to withstand the injuries. If it were a human, they would be torn to pieces and die. Devour. Chapter 1900. The ranking of Tongshan has reached 17. The 6th Tao of Samsara has added one more chapter. Many thanks to Lian Feng Shiyu. Chaos Ghost City. Unknowingly, the 10 Ghost Kings were all killed by Chen Zong. Even the most powerful Ghost King, Xianlai, was killed by Chen Zong before he could even display his strength. He felt extremely aggrieved. Just a moment ago, he was still thinking about how to deal with Ghost Blade Sword Heart. In the next moment, he was killed by Ghost Blade Sword Heart. It was a great irony. After devouring the wills of the Ghost Realm, Chen Zong's will of the Ghost Realm was full again. However, Chen Zong did not plan to stop there. Ghost Mother Tree. That Ghost Mother Tree was still growing. As long as he destroyed it, he could devour more wills of the Ghost Realm. In order to obtain more wills of the Ghost Hunter, Chen Zong would not show any mercy or hesitation in his actions. After recovering his strength, Chen Zong appeared beside the Ghost Mother Tree. His eyes were filled with coldness. Heart Sword Realm. 1,000 swords greeting. 10,000 swords as one. 1,000 sword chi that had been condensed to the extreme condensed into an invincible sword chi in an instant. It pierced through the flickering black light and broke through the extremely tough tree trunk. It directly shot into the tree trunk and exploded. The exploding sword chi wantonly spread out in all directions and immediately damaged the Ghost Mother Tree from the inside. 10,000 swords greeting. The second wave of 1,000 extremely condensed sword chi instantly spread out and filled the area within 1,000 meters. It was extremely sharp. This sharpness tore through the void. Kill. 1,000 extremely condensed sword chis instantly shot through the air. If it was when he had just entered the Ghost Realm, he would not be able to fight against this 1,500 meters tall Ghost Mother Tree. But now it was totally possible. The black light spread out again and instantly covered the entire area. However, it was torn apart and penetrated by the sword chi. In the blink of an eye, the gigantic tree trunk was destroyed by the countless sword chi. 10,000 swords returned to one, attacked the Ghost Mother Tree. The 10,000 swords returned to one, destroyed the Ghost Mother Tree from the outside. Screams and screams continued to reverberate in all directions, but they could not shake Chen Zong in the slightest. The top-level Flower of God had condensed Chen Zong's spiritual will to the extreme. It was indestructible and unshakable. If the screams of the Ghost Mother Tree were compared to a strong gust of wind, then Chen Zong's willpower would be like a mountain. No matter how strong the wind was, it couldn't do anything to the mountain. It was majestic and immovable, ancient and vigorous. However, this scream alerted the other ghosts in chaotic Ghost City. Ghost generals and ghost soldiers all came to see what was going on. Under normal circumstances, the ghost mother tree would not scream. There was only one situation when it was under attack. If that was the case, who would dare to attack the ghost mother tree? Don't you know that not only is Ghost King Xianlai overseeing this chaotic ghost city, there's also another ghost king with even more terrifying battle prowess? When these ghost generals saw it, they were all stunned. Ghost Blade Sword Heart. It was the Ghost Blade Sword Heart who was attacking the ghost mother tree. What was going on? Why did the Ghost Blade Sword Heart attack the ghost mother tree, but no other ghost kings came to stop it? Chernzong didn't care about this. The third wave of sword chi pierced through the air and blasted the ghost mother tree full of holes. Then, a sword slashed through the air. Half-hearted, 4 phantoms flashed in an instant. As the real body swung the sword, 5 rays of sword chi merged into one. Its power increased exponentially. Rumble! The ghost mother tree was cut in half and fell to one side, making a shocking rumbling sound. Dust and smoke billowed in all directions. The entire chaotic ghost city was shaking. Wisps of black spread out from the fallen ghost mother tree. Then, they seemed to be attracted by something. They turned into a black dragon and rushed toward Chernzong. Chernzong felt his body tremble. The will of the realm in his body felt like it had eaten its fill. It was almost full. Since he became a ghost and entered the ghost region, he had absorbed more than 20 ghost kings and 2 ghost mother trees' wills. He had absorbed many ghost generals, ghost soldiers, and even ghost beasts' wills. It was a lot. What should I do next? Chernzong couldn't help but think. Then, he looked at the surrounding ghosts. Kill. Kill them all. No matter how small a mosquito's leg was, there was still meat. Moreover, many little drops made an ocean. When a powerful ghost king attacked recklessly, the weaker ghost kings couldn't resist, let alone ghost generals and ghost soldiers. Kill, kill, kill. The ghosts thought that the Ghost Blade Sword Heart had gone mad. Massacre. This was a completely one-sided slaughter. Chernzong's will was tenacious to the extreme, and it was unshakable like steel that had been tempered 100 times. Under the swaying of the peak-grade divine flower, all the negative impacts were completely resisted and dispersed. Moreover, this kind of massacre couldn't temper his will much, because the difference in level was too great. His will was unmoved, and he killed with one sword. There were 36 ghost sects in Chaos Ghost City, which corresponded to 36 tribes. Now, they were being massacred one by one. With a flash, Chernzong appeared in the sky above the Ghost Blade sect and waved his sword without hesitation. Ghost King, this is the Ghost Blade sect. A ghost general shouted in disbelief. The leader of the Ghost Blade sect was attacking the Ghost Blade sect. What was going on? Was his mind bewitched? He had never heard of it. Chernzong didn't care. He kept waving his sword. Every time he waved his sword, hundreds and thousands of ghosts were killed, as if he was cutting grass. Soon, the 36 ghost sects in Chaos Ghost City were massacred by Chernzong, turning it into a ghost city. With only one sword, Chernzong completed the feat that the 36 tribes of the Ghost Clan wanted to do but couldn't. This was also because Chernzong's sword had a suppressive and destructive effect on the Ghost Clan. The sword chi technique that he had comprehended from the Ghost Mother Tree's germination had a terrifying destructive power. It was really effective against the Ghost Clan, who had strong bodies and tenacious vitality. Countless wills of the Ghost Realm gathered from all directions and were absorbed by the will of the world on Chernzong's body. It also fed Chernzong waves of subtle but extremely pure energy. Suddenly, his mind trembled. The will of the world on his body also fluctuated slightly, as if it was warning Chernzong. Chernzong only felt his body tremble slightly. He couldn't help but feel a cold aura spreading. A wave of malicious intent attacked him, causing his eyebrows to twitch uncontrollably and his spirit sea to surge. Danger! Danger! His own reaction and the warning from the will of the world on his body made Chen Zong realize that something was wrong. He was afraid that his actions had attracted the attention of the will of the ghost realm. Although he wasn't sure, the will of the ghost realm seemed to feel that something was wrong. Go! Without hesitation, Chen Zong immediately turned into a black light, tore the sky apart, and rushed toward the ghost forest tribe at the fastest speed. That was where the ghost purgatory gate was located. Leave. Although he hadn't swallowed enough wills of the ghost realm, the will of the ghost realm seemed to have noticed him. If he didn't leave now, something big would happen. Make a prompt decision. Without hesitation. Because if he didn't leave now, it would be too late. Rumble! A fierce wind suddenly blew. Black lightning appeared in the sky, splitting the sky. The dark clouds were directly torn apart, revealing a touch of scarlet. Then, Chen Zong noticed that a scarlet phantom with a single eye silently condensed in the sky and stared at him. Chen Zong's entire body trembled the moment the gigantic eye stared at him. An astonishing chill seemed to emerge from the deepest part of his body, and also from the deepest part of his soul, causing him to feel extremely terrified. Suppressing the throbbing in his heart, Chen Zong kept urging his power to maintain his speed at the highest speed. Wind and thunder surged. The bloody light spread and spread. The scarlet eye became more and more solid. Then endless bloody light fell. Endless wind and thunder fell. Endless dark aura swept in from all directions. It was like a huge whirlpool storm connecting the sky and the earth. It looked like a horrible dragon pillar that crossed the sky and stretched for hundreds of miles. The aura was vast and mighty, and when it spread out, it suppressed the void and the world. Cracks appeared in the surroundings. Chen Zong just looked back. He couldn't help but feel his scalp tingling and his hair standing on end. The raging bloody lightning storm condensed the terrible power that could destroy everything. Chen Zong knew that if he fell into it, he would be killed in an instant. Not even his bones would be left, and his soul would scatter. In an instant, an arm broke the whirlpool storm. No matter how the storm swept, it didn't affect it at all. It was like a breeze blowing on fine steel. It didn't cause any damage. It didn't even shake a bit. What kind of arm was that? The arm was huge, and its 5 fingers were like giant pillars. The circumference of the arm alone reached an astonishing 3 meters. It was completely black, but it was covered with thick blood-red veins. The veins were undulating and coiling, like blood-red dragons circling around. Blood flowed like magma constantly. Red light flickered, and an incomparably blazing aura spread out, causing the surrounding temperature to soar. A giant! It was a giant from the Ghost Clan with a sharp horn on its forehead. It was 100 meters tall. Its muscles were like cast iron, containing terrible power. When it was activated, it could destroy everything. The bloody veins on its body were entangled like serpents and dragons. Its blood spread like magma. The surrounding temperature rose sharply. Even the whirlpool was burned. Even though he was far away, Chen Zong could feel the terrible heat. It was as if it was going to burn him. His mouth was dry. His body began to heat up. The realm of freedom. Chen Zong immediately entered the realm of freedom. He isolated all the negative effect. His speed also increased imperceptibly. Boom! The 100-meter-tall giant from the Ghost Clan stepped forward. It was hundreds of meters with each step. It didn't seem to be fast, but it was slowly increasing its speed. At first, it took 3 breaths to take a step. After a while, it took 2 breaths to take a step, as if it was adapting to its huge body. After a while, it took 2 breaths to take a step. Of course, compared with Chen Zong's speed, there was a big gap. In 1 breath, the giant moved hundreds of meters, but Chen Zong could fly as far as 10,000 meters. The distance between them was constantly increasing. Chapter 1901. I just gave little Six Dao a bath, and told Lu Sa that it would end at 12 o'clock in the evening, so he would probably be ranked 17th and wouldn't be able to increase any further. I'm both regretful and happy at the same time. I'm regretful that I can't continue, but I'm also glad that little Six Dao can finally have a good rest. I didn't expect to be slapped in the face again in the blink of an eye. I'm so excited that I feel like I'm floating in the air. Boom, boom, boom. The ground shook as if an earthquake was coming. Dust and smoke billowed as if thousands of soldiers and horses were charging. The momentum was extremely terrifying. The dust and smoke formed a straight line. It didn't go around at all. It just charged straight ahead. Chenzong kept flying forward. The 100-meter-tall giant kept chasing after him. Its speed was getting faster and faster. From 1 step per 3 breaths to 1 step per 2 breaths, then 1 step per breath. Now it took 10 steps per breath. The faster it moved, the more shocking and terrifying its movements were. Everything in its path was completely flattened by the 100-meter-tall Ghost Clan giant. It rampaged through everything and completely flattened everything. The small ghost tribes along the way had only just felt the terrifying tremors, and before they could react, they immediately felt a shockingly high temperature sweep over them, as if a volcano had erupted. The temperature was shocking and terrifying. It seemed to burn everything. The ghosts whose combat strength was not yet at the level of the ghost soldiers felt like their blood was ignited under the high temperature. Screams came one after another. In the blink of an eye, the ghosts of the small tribes were covered in blood-red flames. With the high temperature as the catalyst, blood as the source. Burn. In the blink of an eye, the ghosts were burned to ashes. Trample. Destroy. Destroy. What's that? Monster. The ghost clansmen guarding the ghost city were all shocked. A few ghost kings also attacked. The high temperature swept over, making their mouths dry as if they were about to burn. It was extremely uncomfortable. The ghost kings stared dumbfoundedly at the huge figure that kept approaching. The blood-red tendons on the figure's body were constantly surging with lava-like blood. They seemed to be boiling, burning wantonly, burning everything, burning everything. Burn, burn, burn. The surrounding void was distorted by the burning. From afar, it looked like a flaming ghost god covered in a layer of red flames. Ghost God Mighty Force. Without hesitation, a Ghost King immediately activated the Ghost God's mighty force accumulated in the Ghost City and summoned the Ghost God's shadow to possess him. Kill. The Ghost Kings immediately joined forces and attacked. The huge flaming ghost-like figure charged straight at them without any intention of taking a detour. That terrifying aura caused them to feel even more terrified. If they did not resist it, Ghost City would probably be destroyed directly. Thus, they had to take action and take the initiative to intercept him. When several Ghost Kings joined forces, especially when a Ghost King summoned a Ghost God Phantom to possess his body, his battle prowess increased by several times, which was even more astonishing. Boom! The Ghost Kings directly used their innate abilities and erupted with all their strength, directly attacking. Ripples appeared in the void, and even cracks appeared, quickly spreading out. However, when these tyrannical attacks hit the huge figure, they were immediately dispersed. They were unable to harm the terrifying flaming figure at all. It was like an ant trying to shake a tree. The Ghost Kings were all stunned. This was completely different from what they had imagined. Unexpectedly, their attacks were completely ineffective. They were completely blocked. How could this be? Boom! The flaming ghost-like figure also counterattacked in an instant. He blasted out a palm, sweeping across the sky and rolling up a terrifying bloody flame storm. Even if the Ghost Kings were possessed by the Ghost God Phantom and their battle prowess increased by several times, it was of no use. They were completely defeated in just one exchange and turned into ashes. Push. Once the Ghost Kings died, Ghost City lost its top battle prowess. The remaining ghost soldiers and ghost generals fled in all directions. The city walls were directly breached, unable to stop the flaming ghost-like figure at all. Everything was smashed and melted by the high temperature. The heat became more and more intense, and the impact continued to spread. Chernzong felt the danger at all times. It was too terrifying. A ghost city was destroyed just like that. This kind of power could not be resisted at all. Even if he had the Heart Seal treasure robe on him to weaken the attack, the remaining 30% was enough to turn him into ashes in an instant. Run. He had never thought that such a crisis would occur. Could it be that he had acted too quickly? He had devoured too much of the Ghost Realm's will in an instant, so much so that it had attracted the attention of the Ghost Realm's will. It realized that something was wrong and counterattacked. That was possible. However, Chernzong was also worried that the more time passed, the more variables there would be. That was why he had sped up. He did not expect such an unforeseen event to occur. It was too late to say anything now. Moreover, if he had to do it again, Chernzong would choose to devour the Ghost Realm's will as soon as possible to complete this mission and leave the Purgatory Ghost Realm as soon as possible to return to Tianyuan Sacred Region. No matter what, he had to leave now. He had to leave the Purgatory Ghost Realm as soon as possible and return to Tianyuan Sacred Region. Only by returning to Tianyuan Sacred Region would he be safe. Otherwise, if he was caught here, he would be turned into ashes in one strike. Everything would be for naught. Fast. The speed of the flaming ghost-like figure was getting faster and faster. In just a breath, it had crossed dozens of meters. Every step it took could cross thousands of meters. In the blink of an eye, it could cross tens of thousands of meters. Wherever it passed, people were plunged into misery and suffering, leaving a thick black trail on the ground. It was as if a thick brush had been drawn on a white paper. It was very clear. Pursuit. Relentless pursuit. The more it chased, the more furious it became. The more furious it was, the more intense the scarlet flames burned on its body. Burn. 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 Burn everything. Burn everything. Complete annihilation. As the speed of the flaming ghost-like figure increased, the distance between them was constantly shortening. An astonishingly high temperature swept over. Chernzong felt as if his body was about to be set on fire. He used his cultivation method to constantly eliminate the burning invasion. Accelerate, accelerate, accelerate! He had to fly at a faster speed. Chernzong found that although the yin-yang seamless body technique was amazing, it was more suitable for fighting than long-distance flying. Moving in a straight line is the fastest, but that's what I know in the past. The trajectory of the heartbeat chain sword is an arc, which is faster than moving in a straight line. Under the strong sense of crisis, Chernzong's mind became more and more condensed, as if it had been condensed to the extreme. With the temporary boost from the will of the world, a spiritual light emerged. Suddenly, the trajectory of Chernzong's body began to change. He was no longer moving in a straight line, but he was moving in an arc. However, his speed did not decrease because of this. Instead, it increased under the same distance. This meant that Chernzong's speed was indeed increasing. Almost one arc leap would cover a distance of about 10,000 meters. He had to fly again. At first, he was unfamiliar with it. However, with continuous comprehension and application, he improved rapidly, which was extremely amazing. One arc leap was 10,000 meters. This was the best distance. If it was too long, the arc would be enlarged. Once it was enlarged, it would affect time imperceptibly and reduce the speed in disguise. 10,000 meters was just right. This was the most suitable distance. With 10,000 meters as a segment, the connection between each segment had to be perfect. Suddenly, Chernzong turned into a curve and kept flying in the void. He was like a snake, but also like a swimming dragon. Unknowingly, Chernzong's speed increased by another 30%. Chernzong's speed was already extremely fast. After the 30% increase, it was even more amazing. Even the top ghost kings like the ghost kings and mysterious demons could not compare with Chen Zong's speed. The distance was increased again. Fast. Chen Zong was getting closer and closer to the ghost forest tribe. Approaching. The flaming ghost deity's speed was also increasing constantly, and it let out a furious roar. In an instant, Chen Zong rushed over and directly entered the city of the ghost forest tribe. He went to the place where the purgatory ghost gate was sealed. The first thing to do was to lift the seal. This would take some time. The terrifying flaming ghost deity was chasing after him at an amazing speed. Everything along the way was turned into ashes. The crisis was getting closer and closer. Chen Zong was not anxious. He was calm. The more dangerous the situation was, the more he needed to be calm. Only in this way could the seal be lifted. In fact, it was not difficult to lift the seal. It was just that the crisis was getting closer and closer, and he felt that every second was like a year. Everything was a psychological change. Extreme calmness. The seal was being lifted rapidly. It would take about 3 breaths. However, the flaming ghost deity was approaching and had already rushed into the city. 1 breath. 2 breaths. 3 breaths. The seal was lifted. At the same time, the flaming ghost deity punched out. The terrifying fist force was filled with extreme flames that burned everything. Wherever it passed, the void was directly shattered into countless pieces. Without the slightest hesitation, Chen Zong's figure flashed as he charged into the purgatory's ghost realm gate. He felt a terrifying rumble behind him as an indescribable heat spread out, almost turning him into ashes. So close. It was just a little bit. A little bit of time difference was the difference between life and death. Not long after, Chen Zong rushed out of the purgatory ghost gate and returned to the Supreme Mystery World. As soon as he returned to the Supreme Mystery World, Chen Zong immediately felt a familiar aura. The body of the ghost clan was also rapidly transforming, returning to the original appearance of the human clan. Sure enough, he still preferred the aura of the Supreme Mystery World. The aura of the ghost city was also much weaker. "I'm back." Chen Xiu, who had been guarding the purgatory ghost gate, smiled. After not seeing him for a while, his aura had become more profound and unfathomable. "I'm back." Chen Zong nodded, a little intoxicated by the aura here. Immediately, the world will on his body also peeled off and condensed into an illusory shadow, looking much more solid than before. "Now, let's work together to close the purgatory ghost gate." Just as Chen Zong, Chen Xiu, and the world will were about to close the purgatory ghost gate, a sudden change occurred. An extremely blazing aura suddenly turned into flames and rushed out of the purgatory ghost gate, sweeping everything. The terrifying heat seemed to melt everything. Immediately after, a 3-meter-thick arm covered in magma veins emerged from the purgatory ghost gate. It was burning with terrifying flames and rumbled as if the world itself was about to collapse. Destruction. Filled with a terrifying destructive aura, it spread out and shrouded all directions. It was the arm of the flaming ghost deity. It had chased them to this point, and one of its arms had broken into the Supreme Mystery World. If they didn't stop it, it was very likely that the other party would enter the Supreme Mystery World through the Purgatory Ghost Gate. At that time, it would be a real disaster. Attack. 3 hearts 2 minds sword technique. 10,000 swords in one. Chen Zong immediately burst out without holding back. Chen Xiu's body also suddenly erupted with a terrifying and ferocious aura. Azura Moon Slashing. Chapter 1902. The Azura Moon Slashing sword was pitch black, and the crescent moon split the sky. Its power was unparalleled. Supreme Tao Will. Chen Zong could not help but be shocked. When his original body was in the Purgatory realm, The connection between him and his doppelganger was like being separated by two realms. It was temporarily cut off, so he did not know about the other's situation. He did not expect that Chun Xiu's Dao Will had also transformed into a supreme Dao Will. Divine Fiend Dao Will. This was a Dao Will that was formed by the Divine Fiend Dao Will absorbing the last of the Divine Fiend Origin Pearl's power. It was closely related to the Divine Fiend Azura battle technique. The power that the Divine Fiend Dao Will could unleash when combined with the Divine Fiend battle technique surpassed direct superposition, and there was an obvious increase in power. And this sword also broke through the original 20% power condensation, reaching 30%. It was even more terrifying, as if nothing in the world could block this sword. There are thousands of sword techniques, but I only choose one slash, the ultimate slash. The power that burst out from this extreme sword was extremely terrifying. Chen Zong estimated that the power of this sword was enough to directly split a top Ghost King like Ghost King Xianlai. The Divine Fiend battle technique attached to it was fierce and domineering, and it was enough to quickly obliterate Ghost King Xianlai's extremely vigorous life force. In other words, Chun Xiu's Azura moon-slashing sword had a terrifying power that was not inferior to the 10,000 swords in one. The original body and doppelganger attacked with all their might, and the void instantly shattered. The strength of the space in Tianyuan's sacred region was far inferior to the purgatory realm. However, such a powerful attack hit, the flaming ghostly arm was only slightly broken. The burning flames on it only left a faint scar on the arm. That was all. Horrifying. Chen Zong and Chen Xiu were extremely horrified. Why was it so strong? Both of them unleashed their strongest attacks, but it was still difficult to do anything to the other party. How could they fight? You guys stop it, I will close the ghost gate. The voice of the worlds will rang in Chen Zong and Chen Xiu's ears. If that was the case, then let's attack again. Explode. Explode. Exploding with all his strength, Chen Zong even used the Royal Spirit Strike. Of course, the current Royal Spirit Strike was not as powerful as the 10,000 swords in one, but it was still a very powerful technique. As for Chen Xiu, he used one slash. Azura Moon Slashing Sword. Ultimate Slash. Although their attacks were unable to harm the arm, to a certain extent, they were able to delay it and intercept it. This would buy time for the world will to close the Purgatory's Ghost Realm Gate. The gate of hell slowly closed under the power of the will of the world. It was irresistible and irreversible. This part of the world, this part of spacetime, was closely connected to the world will. If the spacetime of this world was the body, then the will of the world was the soul. They were interdependent and indispensable. Previously, when the world will fell into a deep slumber, it was as if a person had turned into a vegetable. Now that he had woken up, it meant that he had recovered, but his strength was still not enough. He was still very weak, and his control over his own body was also very weak. That was why he needed the help of Chen Zong and the others. If he recovered to a certain extent, he would be able to summon a flaming demon to chase after Chen Zong, just like the Purgatory Ghost Realm. If he was even stronger, he might have been able to kill him directly. The Purgatory Ghost Realm's will had been swallowed by the world will on Chen Zong's body. Its power had decreased a lot. Otherwise, it was hard to say whether Chen Zong could escape. Although the world will had not recovered to its peak, it had recovered a lot. Compared to when it had just woken up, it was many times stronger. It had more obvious control over the spacetime of this part of the world. Close. The flaming demon's arm continued to erupt with tyrannical power, trying to expand the gate of hell, but it could not stop it from closing. It was completely closed. The flaming demon's arm could not leave and was directly cut off. Chen Zong and Chen Xiu also breathed a sigh of relief. They suddenly felt a sense of emptiness in their bodies, and their essence, qi, and spirit were almost depleted. The world will's phantom immediately swallowed the ghost realm's will contained in the flaming demon's arm. It was very tyrannical. It was not inferior to the more than 20 ghost kings that Chen Zong had killed. When it finished swallowing, Chen Zong could see that the phantom of the world will had become more solid. It was obvious that it had improved again. The ghost realm's will had been swallowed. The terrifying arm also lost all its power and became wrinkled. However, it still exuded an extremely terrifying aura. It was ferocious and could suppress everything. This broken arm that had lost the ghost realm's will was useless to the world will. Chen Xiu kept it. The power on it could be absorbed and refined to improve the divine fiend Azura battle technique. Thank you. The voice of the world will's phantom sounded. It was deep and vigorous, with unparalleled charm. We both took what we needed. Chen Zong responded. It was indeed so. As for the polite words to build a good relationship with the world will and so on, to Chen Zong it did not exist. The world will had always been fair and just. Unless there was a special reason, it was almost impossible to build a good relationship with it. There was no need to waste time and effort. Of course, if his path ended here, it would be necessary to waste time and effort. But no, his path was in the void of the universe. When do you want to comprehend the world's origin? The world will's phantom asked. He also did not intend to build a good relationship with Chen Zong. It did not exist either. Now, Chen Zong's eyes flashed and he replied without hesitation. After experiencing countless battles, he had constantly improved and had reached a limit. Chen Zong felt that if he wanted to continue to break through, unless there was a great opportunity, it would take a lot of time. Comprehending the world's origin was a great opportunity. Comprehending it now was also to strike while the iron was hot. Now, the Purgatory Ghost Gate was closed, and the Purgatory Ghost Realm was in great chaos because of Chen Zong. They had suffered heavy losses. Not only did Chen Zong directly kill more than 20 Ghost Kings, but 3 ghost cities were also destroyed because of the Flaming Ghost God, excluding the ghost city of the Ghost Forest tribe. The number of Ghost Kings that died like this increased by nearly 10. It could be said that the Purgatory Ghost Realm suffered heavy losses after this battle. In addition, the Purgatory Ghost Gate was closed, so they could not open it again and invade the Tianyuan Sacred Realm again. Moreover, the world will of the Tianyuan Sacred Realm had not only awakened, but also recovered a lot of its power. The strength of the space had also increased significantly. Although it was not as strong as the Purgatory Ghost Realm, it would not be a problem to reach half of the Purgatory Ghost Realm's strength. The higher the strength of the space, the more difficult it would be to open the Purgatory Ghost Gate. It was safe. It was finally safe. The Shura sect should return to the territory of Tai Luo City. But before that, they had to disperse the dark aura in the territory of Tai Luo City. With the Purgatory Ghost Gate closed, this was not a difficult task. Chen Xiu left to relocate the Shura sect, and Chen Zong disappeared in an instant. He was taken to the depths of the world by the world will. In another place, the heavenly god Gong's body was covered in golden light, as if flames were burning fiercely. In an instant, wisps of aura spread from all directions. The aura on the heavenly god Gong's body also gradually changed, becoming more mysterious. This mysterious aura continued to deepen, causing the aura on his body to become more and more powerful. The burning golden flames seemed to carry with them an indestructible will. Indestructible. The heavenly god Gong felt that the power contained in his body could shatter the vacuum and destroy the world. The depths of the world were grotesque and variegated, like a kaleidoscope. Countless colors flashed in front of one's eyes, and countless rays of light surrounded one's body. It was dark and dim, as if the sea had turned into mulberry fields. Chen Zong continued to go deeper under the guidance of the world will. Looking around, he suddenly felt dazzled. It seemed like he was passing through a space-time tunnel, but it also didn't seem like it. All in all, the mysterious aura around him was indescribable. He had not really reached the depths of the world, but there were already such gorgeous sceneries on the way. Qin Zong could feel that the countless colors contained astonishing mysteries. If he comprehended it, he would also gain a lot. However, since he could go to the depths of the world to comprehend the origin of the world, the effect would be more than 10 times better. Qin Zong was looking forward to it. He wondered what kind of benefits he would gain from comprehending the origin of the world. As this thought flashed through his mind, Qin Zong also noticed that the colorful colors around him had become sparse. Gradually, they turned into clear light, rippling gently like water. This is the depths of the world. That is the origin of the world. Go ahead and comprehend it. The voice of the world will entered Qin Zong's ears, and then it fell silent. There was only one chance. Qin Zong immediately stared ahead. In front of him was like a lake. The lake water was clear, and it was suffused with a faint brilliance. The clear light rippled like water, like a cool breeze blowing past. It was indescribably comfortable and natural, and indescribably deep and unfathomable. This was the origin of the world. The origin of the world carried the power of the world. It was like the life force of the world. It was the power of the deepest level of life. When the world will was asleep, the world still existed and continued to operate. It was just that it was relatively lifeless. However, if it lost its origin, the entire world would collapse, be destroyed, and disappear. The life force and the mystery of power of a world would be concentrated in the origin of the world. In short, when a cultivator cultivated and comprehended the mystery of heaven and earth, it was just like comprehending a trace of aura emitted by the origin of the world. That aura seemed to be separated by layers of voids and emitted from the deepest part of the world. It was emitted to the point where one could comprehend it. It was unknown how many times weaker it was. In some places, the mystery of heaven and earth was stronger because it was less weakened. But now, Qin Zong directly appeared in front of the origin of the world. He stared at and comprehended the origin of the world in the most direct way. This was not weakened at all. Heart Sword Seal, Heart Sutra, comprehension of the origin of the world. These three could be placed side by side. Any one of them was enough to create a top genius and a top expert, not to mention the combination of the three. Imperceptibly, it made Qin Zong's potential reach an even more amazing level, and it built an incomparably solid foundation for him to become an expert in the future. Comprehension. Eliminating all distracting thoughts, Qin Zong began to calm his mind, hold his breath, and concentrate. His eyes were suffused with a trace of divine light. He stared ahead and started to comprehend. As soon as he started to comprehend, Qin Zong immediately felt countless mysteries rushing directly into his spirit's sea and into the depths of his soul. Qin Zong could not help but tremble. He felt that it was unbearable. Chapter 1903. All the yin qi in the territory of Tai Luo City had disappeared, and the sky was clear and bright. Not only that, but the concentration of the qi of heaven and earth in the entire Taishan realm continued to rise, and so did its purity. It was already twice as high as before the invasion of the Purgatory Ghost Clan, and it continued to strengthen. The denser and purer the qi of heaven and earth was, the more significant it was. For ordinary people, it could strengthen their bodies, prolong their lives, and prevent them from getting sick. Even their descendants would become more outstanding and more suitable for cultivation. In this way, the chances of geniuses being born would be higher than before. If this continued, it was hard to say whether there would be top geniuses like Sky God Gong or Qin Zong, but the number of geniuses and even peerless geniuses would definitely continue to increase. Overall, they would only become stronger and stronger. This was an overall, comprehensive improvement. For cultivators, it was easier to absorb the qi of heaven and earth. Whether it was the improvement of cultivation or the practice of cultivation methods, it would be more efficient than before. Moreover, they could comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth more clearly and even more deeply. All in all, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. This was brought about by the awakening of the will of the world and the gradual recovery of its power. As for the territory of Tai Luo City, which was directly invaded by the Purgatory Ghost Clan, it suffered the most damage, but after recovery, the benefits were also the most obvious. It was as if it had been destroyed and rebuilt. Not long after, the broken land in the territory of Tai Luo City began to recover, and a dense forest grew. It was lush and full of vitality. Before, the qi of heaven and earth and the mysteries of heaven and earth in the territory of Tai Luo City were completely incomparable to those in the territory of Taishan City. But now it began to catch up. Perhaps it would catch up, or perhaps even surpass. Under the leadership of Chun Xiu, the Shura clan, from the clan leader to the disciples, once again moved back to the territory of Tai Luo City and Shura Peak. Because Chun Xiu was the first to detect the invasion of the Purgatory Ghost Clan and immediately made corresponding arrangements, the losses were minimal. Coupled with the flexible combat and hunting of the Shura Ghost Hunting Group, although there were some losses, relatively speaking, the gains were greater. For example, the Silver Blade King Zhao Mingkong and the Heaven Battering King, whose combat strength was originally at the elite 6-star level, wanted to break through to the 7-star level. With the normal speed of cultivation, who knew how much time and energy it would take, and they might not succeed in the end. It was possible that he would be stuck at the peak of 6-star for the rest of his life. But now, both the Silver Blade King and the Heaven Battering King had reached the level of elite 7-star, and their 7 battle stars were all silver-white. This fighting strength was many times stronger than in the past. All of this was because of the invasion of the Purgatory Ghost race. As long as the surviving cultivators were able to obtain the essence of the Purgatory Ghoul's origin, they would be able to obtain a clear increase in strength. Or, they would be able to achieve a breakthrough because of the awakening of the world will, causing the world's yuan qi and the mysteries of the world to become richer. All in all, the surviving cultivators had become stronger because of the invasion of the Purgatory Ghouls. It feels great to be back in Azura Fong. A disciple stood on the Azura Peak, breathing in the familiar and dense aura. He couldn't help but reveal an intoxicated expression. To the disciples, the sect was their home. Previously, they had no choice but to move and temporarily set up their sect in another place. However, that was only temporary. It was still temporary. Once it was defined as a temporary sect, everyone would also think so in their hearts. If it wasn't home, they wouldn't feel at ease. Now they were finally back in Azura Fong, the real sect of the Azura sect. Everyone felt a sense of security. This would undoubtedly be beneficial to the cultivators' cultivation. Now that they were back in Azura Fong, the Azura Secret Realm could be opened again. With the Azura Secret Realm, the strength of the Azura sect would continue to grow. Moreover, the cultivation environment of the current Tai Luo City was comparable to that of the highest mystery realm. In the future, the Azura sect would definitely surpass the peak of the ancient Azura sect and even become one of the top forces in the highest mystery realm. After bringing all the members of the Azura sect back to Azura Fong in Tai Luo City, Chun Xiu's mission was completed. Sooner or later, he would have to leave and head to the depths of the universe to find the other inheritances left behind by the Nirvana Sword Master. Therefore, Chun Xiu would try his best not to interfere with the affairs of the Azura sect. He would let them make their own decisions. If they encountered any difficulties, they would have to solve it themselves unless there was no other way. After entering the Azura Secret Realm, Chun Xiu took out the severed arm of the flaming ghost god and started to use the divine fiend Azura battle technique to absorb the ferocious power contained in it. This power was very high-end. Compared to the power that the Ghost King had mastered, it was a level higher. It was most suitable for cultivating the Divine Fiend Azura battle technique. The Divine Fiend Azura battle technique was very advanced. It mainly cultivated the power of the Divine Fiend Azura and strengthened the body. Of course, it wasn't a cultivation technique of the body. Therefore, this strengthening didn't make the body like a cultivator of the body. Instead, it raised the level of life. In other words, it allowed Chen Xiu's body to continuously improve. Azura body. It could also be called the Azura spirit body. Endless years, endless cultivation. While Chen Xiu was cultivating in the Azura secret realm, the heavenly god Gong was also cultivating. The golden flames on his body seemed to be inextinguishable, burning like an eternal divine flame. His body's potential was constantly stimulated, and his spirit body was slowly improving. Body constitution was very helpful to cultivators. Those with excellent body constitutions would have a smooth sailing cultivation, especially when they were blessed with great fortune. The heavenly god Gong felt that his body's potential was constantly being stimulated. His body was also constantly improving, and his combat power was becoming more and more powerful. Chen Zong. The heavenly god Gong's eyes stared ahead. They seemed to be able to pierce through the void, burning with eternal golden flames. Chen Zong. Jiandi Chen Zong. This was the obsession in the deepest part of his heart. It was a thorn, a shadow. No matter what, he had to defeat Chen Zong. Only then could he remove the thorn in his heart and remove the shadow in his heart. Soon, very soon, when he finished cultivating, his combat power would increase greatly. When he reached the peak, it would be time to defeat Jiandi Chen Zong. In the deepest part of the world, a clear light spread out like a lake. It seemed to be rippling in the wind. The aura that spread out was extremely mysterious, and Chen Zong was completely intoxicated by it. The mysteries were endless, and it was extremely direct and intense. Just by comprehending it, countless mysteries rushed into his divine sea. In an instant, Chen Zong felt as if his divine sea was going to explode. There were too many mysteries. Chen Zong was so scared that he immediately stopped comprehending. Although he was prepared, it was still unexpected. It was really too intense. The mysteries of heaven and earth were endless, but human cultivation was not like that. There had to be a choice. If one didn't make a choice and was too greedy, wanting this and that, the end result would be nothing. After all, there were too many mysteries in heaven and earth. There were too many to count. Moreover, every mystery was worth comprehending. They were extremely profound. Even with Chen Zong's astonishing comprehension, it was impossible for him to comprehend all the mysteries. He had to choose the ones that were most useful to him. Feel carefully and feel the mysteries that were closely related to him. First, the cultivation method. The Taichu sword origin technique was now at the 8th level, but he still hadn't condensed the flower of extremity. This meant that he hadn't reached the limit yet. Then, he had to create the 9th level. The difficulty of creating the 9th level was very high. If he didn't have any opportunities, Chen Zong estimated that he would have to spend a lot of time. But the opportunity was right in front of him. He had to grab it. Maybe I can take this opportunity to further optimize the Taichu sword origin technique. Chen Zong suddenly had an idea. The level of the Taichu sword origin technique was about the same as heaven and earth execution technique. But compared to the Divine Fiend Azura battle technique, it was much weaker. Of course, Chen Zong didn't dare to hope to improve the Taichu sword origin technique to the level of the Divine Fiend Azura battle technique. But after fighting so many battles and obtaining such opportunities to comprehend the origin of the world, it would be of great help to the perfection of his foundation. He could take this opportunity to further optimize the Taichu sword origin technique. Maybe he could condense the top-level flower of extremity. The difference between the top level and the top level was very obvious. If the original Taichu sword origin technique was given to the 9th level, he would probably only be able to condense the top-level flower of extremity. This wasn't what Chernzong was after. Comprehend. Throw away the other mysteries and just focus on the technique, and draw out the mysteries that were closely related to it. That was the mysteries of the sword. Taichu. Sword. A feeling of the beginning of the world filled his heart, his spirit ocean, and his soul. Chernzong continuously came into contact with it, comprehended it, and grasped it. Suddenly, Chernzong seemed to see a flash of sword light cut through the dark void. Instantly, the clear air rose and the turbid air sank. That flash of sword light came from nowhere, and no one knew where it ended. It flashed past, and the darkness was torn apart. Heaven and earth were opened. Vaguely, Chernzong seemed to have seen the birth of this world. The clear air rose to the sky. The turbid air sank to the ground. When heaven and earth were opened, it became clear. But in the middle, there was still chaos. This was the embryonic form of heaven and earth. The Taichu sword origin technique takes endless sharpness, the sharpness that can split heaven and earth, tearing everything apart, and is unstoppable. A flash of spiritual light suddenly appeared. But it seems to be more than that. The Taichu sword origin technique is the premise of splitting heaven and earth. After that, it is the evolution of heaven and earth. Comprehend. As he continued to comprehend, endless mysteries emanated from the origin of the world, allowing Chernzong to come into contact with it more directly and comprehend it. Chernzong immediately realized that his previous Taichu sword origin technique seemed to have deviated. No, it shouldn't be said to be a deviation. The path was correct, but it was a little shallow. It didn't go deeper, and it didn't really develop the potential that it should have. Splitting heaven and earth. Evolving heaven and earth. This was the correct path of the Taichu sword origin technique. Rising from chaos, opening at Taichu, the sword master of heaven and earth. This was the true Taichu sword origin technique. Chapter 1904. 4 updates from 17th to 13th are complete. Thank you to Arvin_Lu for your support. In the depths of the world, in front of the world origin, a series of roars suddenly sounded from Chernzong's body. It was as if a storm was raging, and the momentum was shocking. The Taichu sword origin continued to circulate, and Chernzong's body also trembled slightly. The first level of the Taichu sword origin technique. Circulate. It was as if he had broken the shackles and started cultivating again. The first level. The second level. The third level. Level after level, he cultivated again and again. The first 3 levels were still the foundation. At the 4th level, he felt that the Taichu sword origin had undergone some strange changes. It was still sharp and it could tear through everything. It was as if the world was being split open. His meridians and other things were all being torn apart by the constant impact. At the 5th level, the sharpness was even more tyrannical and shocking. At the 6th level, the sharpness seemed to have undergone some strange changes. Circulate, circulate, circulate. Circulate endlessly. Circulate endlessly. The Taichu sword origin cultivated at the 6th level was already comparable to the previous 8th level. Its power was very shocking. This meant that the Taichu sword origin technique had a very significant improvement. The 7th level. Chernzong began to break through to the 7th level. The 7th level had new mysteries. The first level to the 3rd level of the Taichu sword origin technique was the foundation. A solid foundation would give more potential for future cultivation. The 4th level to the 6th level was the extreme sharpness that could split open the world. But what about after splitting open the world? That would be the evolution of the world. The 7th level was the beginning of the evolution of the world. As the understanding emerged, the Taichu sword origin seemed to become violent, as if it wanted to tear Chen Zong's body apart. In an instant, the power hidden deep in Chen Zong's body seemed to be drawn. It flowed out like a stream. This power was the pure origin power that Chen Zong received after he entered the Purgatory Ghost realm as a Purgatory Ghost. It was a very high-level power that was many levels higher than the original essence of the Ghost realm. This power was hidden in Chen Zong's body, and kept accumulating. Chen Zong had been thinking about how to use these dormant powers to improve himself, because after returning to the highest profundity realm, Chen Zong also tried a little, but found that it was difficult to mobilize. The power was dormant in the deepest part of his body, and could only be felt. Who would have thought that he would actually take the initiative to appear here? Chen Zong's meridians were torn apart by the 7th level of the Taichu sword essence. Even his muscles were torn apart. He felt as if he had been pierced by thousands of swords, and he was in excruciating pain. The energy that lay dormant in the depths of his body surged out in succession, transforming into a violent tide that swept out and struck every part of his body. Everywhere it passed, the places that had been torn apart by the sword energy healed. Chen Zong suddenly felt that as his body was torn apart by the sword origin and then healed by the extremely high-end origin energy, his physique had also changed and improved. This kind of transformation was different from the transformation of body refinement technique. The body refining cultivation method was to constantly improve oneself. Through bitter cultivation and various resources, one could make up for their innate deficiencies and constantly improve themselves. However, the transformation and improvement at this moment was even more brilliant. It was a leap in the level of life. It was deeper and more profound. It was also more brilliant. This kind of transformation was very mysterious and difficult to describe in word. He did not resist or struggle, but went along with the transformation. It came from the perception of the heart, and this transformation was very beneficial to him. The 7th level of the Taichu sword essence continued to operate. This kind of power had already surpassed the original 8th level. In addition to the extreme sharpness, there was also a kind of mysterious transformation in his body. It was as if his body was a piece of chaos. Wherever the sword energy passed, it tore apart everything, as if it was splitting the heavens and earth. The heavens and earth were evolving. His body was constantly being torn apart. Every time it was torn apart, origin energy would surge in and repair it, causing it to improve unknowingly. Transformation. Transformation of the cultivation method. Transformation of the body. This kind of feeling was as if his physique was improving. It was very similar. In the lineage of heaven and earth in the eternal battle fort, his physique of heaven and earth had undergone many body improvements. Therefore, this kind of feeling was very clear, as if it was branded. Could it be that his body was transforming into some kind of physique? Chen Zong was very clear that his body did not have any special bloodline or physique. It was just an ordinary body. Although the heart sword seal had cleansed his meridians and washed his marrow, it was only an improvement and optimization. He did not have any special bloodline or physique. For a cultivator, it was very important to have a bloodline or physique talent. It was a kind of innate talent and an innate advantage. Of course, Chen Zong did not care much about whether he had any special bloodline or physique talent. If he had it, he would have it. If he did not, he would not have it. Everything would be natural. Because even if he did not have any special bloodline or physique talent, Chen Zong was confident that with his comprehension, talent, and hard work, he would continue to move forward and surpass many people. Just like in the past until now, there were many people who were more outstanding than him but were later overtaken by him, and even left far behind. Taking a step back, if he could have a suitable bloodline or physique talent, his cultivation path would be smoother. Right now, he felt as if a special physique talent was being born. It seemed to be a special physique talent that was closely related to the power of the Taichu sword source technique. If that was the case, then the power of the Taichu sword source would be increased correspondingly. Tier. At first, it was the meridians and muscles that were being torn. Then, it went deeper and deeper. His bones were being torn, his marrow was being torn, and his organs were being torn. Later on, Chen Zong felt that the flowing blood seemed to be torn as well. Blood could be torn? It sounded unbelievable, but it was exactly so. Blood was made up of many small things. Now, what was being torn were the things that made up the blood. After being torn, the power of the origin that was fed back by the devouring of the demon ghosts will immediately surged into the blood and repaired it. After the repair, it was strengthened. This was a depth that could not be reached by a body-refining technique. This was a kind of improvement from the level of the essence of life. Destruction and construction. The tearing of the Taichu sword source was destruction. The restoration of the power of the origin was construction. There was no construction without destruction. Where there was destruction, there was construction. Destruction and construction. While his body was changing and slowly giving birth to physical talents, it was also fed back into the technique, causing the seventh level of the Taichu sword source technique to continuously improve. Chen Zong estimated that the seventh level of the new Taichu sword source technique would be comparable to the ninth level that had not been created yet. It might even have surpassed the ninth level in terms of profundity. This was because the original Taichu sword source technique only had the profundity of extreme sharpness. Now, in addition to extreme sharpness, the Taichu sword source technique also had the profundity of evolving heaven and earth. Under the endless profundity and inspiration, Chen Zong even thought that the subsequent Taichu sword source technique would exceed the level of evolving heaven and earth. It would have even more profound profundity. However, that should be the level of the subsequent technique, which was still far from his current level. But it was like a seed that had already been planted. When the time was right, it would sprout and break through the soil. The seventh level of the Taichu sword source technique. High-end power of the origin. Between the two there was a cycle. In an instant, the Taichu sword source technique reached the peak of the seventh level. Under the endless flashes of inspiration, all kinds of profundities exploded in Chen Zong's mind. The eighth level. The profundity of the eighth level of the Taichu sword source technique had been comprehended. In an instant the technique broke through. Once it broke through, the circulation of the Taichu sword source technique became even more profound. At the seventh level, it only tore apart the inside and outside of the body, causing changes to occur. The eighth level was even deeper and more thorough. At the same time, Chen Zong felt that as the eighth level of the Taichu sword source technique was circulating, threads of Taichu sword source technique began to combine with the shockingly high-end power of the origin and gather within his body. It was above the sea of qi. It was a ball of illusory shadow, filled with countless air currents. It looked gray and chaotic, but if one looked more closely, there seemed to be clear air and turbid air slowly separating inside. The clear air was slowly rising, while the turbid air was slowly sinking. The embryonic form of heaven and earth. This was the embryonic form of heaven and earth, and it had actually appeared within his body. This made Chen Zong feel extremely incredulous. It was simply unbelievable. Vaguely, Chen Zong realized that he seemed to have created an incredible technique. Perhaps it was not as strong as the Divine Fiend Azura battle technique now, but it would definitely not be inferior in the future. It might even surpass it. Circulate. The eighth level of the Taichu sword source technique continued to circulate, further tearing apart Chen Zong's body from the inside and outside. The tearing became more and more thorough, and at the moment of tearing, it was immediately replenished by the power of the origin. Rumbling sounds continuously came from Chen Zong's body, as if it contained countless storms, countless thunderbolts, and countless raging flames. Chen Zong could feel that his body was transforming even further. Upgrade. Unparalleled upgrade. Limitless improvement. However, the pure energy of the origin he got from swallowing the ghost hunter's will wasn't inexhaustible. Each time it was just a flow of energy. Although many little drops made a mickle, it wasn't a lot. As Chen Zong continued to recover, the tearing inside and outside of his body also continued to be consumed. There seemed to be a cracking sound, and countless cracks appeared on Chen Zong's skin. These were cracks that spread from the inside of his body to the surface of his skin. His entire body looked like a porcelain that had been smashed. Light flashed and flowed. The power of the origin covered Chen Zong from the inside out, and a layer of light spread over his body. It was like flowing water, unfathomable and mysterious. In fact, the power that he received from devouring the will of the Purgatory Ghost Realm belonged to the power of the origin of the Purgatory Ghost Realm. It was even more advanced than the power of the origin of the world in Tianyuan Sacred Region. It was also because it was too advanced that Chen Zong could not take the initiative to use it for the time being. It just so happened that by chance, he had comprehended the origin of the world in Tianyuan Sacred Region and had further perfected and optimized the technique. By accident, he had drawn it out and truly integrated it into his body, instead of lying dormant in the depths of his body. This was the power that truly belonged to him. Chapter 1905. The bright moon hung in the sky with 10 shadows. The moonlight was misty and white. A white-faced man in a black robe stood quietly in the moonlight. When the wind blew, his black robe fluttered. The 2 words on his back reflected the moonlight and were exceptionally eye-catching. U10. The mask was as white as the moon, reflecting the moonlight like water. It was as cold as hell. His eyes curved downwards and his mouth curved upwards like a crescent moon. Under the moonlight, the ground was broken and blood flowed like a river. The black-robed, white-faced corpses were everywhere. There were many sword-wielding men and women who were already dead but were still standing with their swords. In the middle, a young man in a tattered battle robe was standing on the ground with a broken sword and one leg bent. He was looking up at the sky with a tired face and dim eyes, but he was not afraid at all. Ha 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 ha, the sky has 9 layers and the moon has 10 shadows. A mere mortal actually wants to rush into the top 10 of the monthly vote. You don't know what you're talking about. The black-robed, white-faced Yusher's voice seemed to resound from all directions. The accents were continuous and extremely mysterious. Waves of cold air rose from the depths of his heart and spread throughout his entire body. Patches of white frost invaded from all directions and quietly spread from his legs, wanting to devour his entire body. Mortals should act like mortals. U10 said the last sentence and turned around. He walked towards the bright moon step by step. His figure faded and only the 12 words seemed to become brighter until they disappeared. The frost had already spread to his neck. "Who are you?" The young man spoke with difficulty. His voice was dry and hoarse, but it was deep and powerful. "He is one of the October Demon Kings who guard the monthly votes list, you 10 great Demon Kings." A weak voice sounded. It was one of the corpses that were everywhere. He was not completely dead and was struggling to get up. On the back of the white-faced, black-robed man, the words U13 were dim. 33 updates in 3 days, 100,000 words. With your cultivation, you can't support it at all. Even if you activated the secret technique, you barely managed to do it. Now that the secret technique has ended, you've sacrificed 800 to kill 1,000 enemies. Have you ever regretted it? My heart, my sword. The young man's dim eyes suddenly shone brighter than the bright moon in the sky. His hoarse voice became more powerful. I will never regret it. If I could do it again, I would still do it. I have great determination. I have the help of my brothers. I have 10,000 swords that can break the moon. You 10 great demon kings, as long as there is a chance, I will kill you under my sword as an offering. As the last word fell, frost spread to his face, and his entire body turned into an ice sculpture. San crawled over with difficulty and shouted, "Quick, get up! Wake up! You can't fall down. You still have to update today. No matter how bad it is, you have to update a chapter to be worthy of your brothers who fought for you until their death." "Alright, then I'll update once today. I feel like I'm exhausted and need to rest. I'll resume updating tomorrow." The frost-faced young man spoke with difficulty. His voice was getting lower and lower. "If I can kill you 10 with my sword, I will break out again after a few days of rest." Yes, that's right. 33 updates in 3 days. He had been in a tense and excited state and had stayed up all night. In the end, he stopped at the 13th place, unable to make it into the top 10 of the monthly votes list. Once he relaxed, the 6th Dao was very tired. It was as if he was about to collapse. He needed to rest. But if he could make it into the top 10, he would break out again after a few days of rest. Chapter 1906. Author's Note: I'm too tired, so I'm going to rest for a bit. I'm very grateful to Lord Soaring Sword for his tip. Thank you to everyone who's been trying to get into the Ascension rankings for the past 3 days. I'm so grateful. I'm now in 11th place, just 100 more votes away from Ascension, and I'll be able to make it into the top 10. If I can make it into the top 10, the 6th Dao Society will have another wave of requests for support before the end of the month. Treasure Body. A treasure body, clear as water, seemed to be resonating with the origin of the world. It seemed to be breathing. Every pore was breathing, swallowing the power of nature. It was a wonderful feeling. Spirit Body. Chernzong was absolutely certain that his physique had transformed. It had completely transformed, and he had become a spirit body. His body refining realm had already reached the 9-star level. His 9th battle star had turned silver, just a hair's breadth away from golden. And now, Chernzong could feel that not only did his body have a shocking increase in strength due to the transformation into a spirit body, but his potential had also increased by many times. In terms of strength, it might not be as good as the Ghost Clan's body that condensed the high-level flower of essence. But in terms of potential, it's better. Chernzong was secretly happy and excited. His potential was better than the Ghost Clan's, which meant that he could develop his body to the extreme and condense the high-level flower of essence. If he could condense all the 3 flowers of essence, qi, and spirit to the top level, it would be even more amazing. If he wanted to be one of the top geniuses in the universe, he had to condense all the 3 flowers of essence, qi, and spirit to the top level. But that was only the prerequisite. The peak of the demigod realm was more complicated than the demigod realm. Although it was said that the universe void was extremely dangerous and only those in the ascending god realm were qualified to explore it, in fact, some powerful cultivators at the peak of the demigod realm would also step into the universe void to explore it. Of course, it would be very dangerous. After all, there were many dangers in the universe. Even spirit ascension realm cultivators could die. It was too early to think about that now. At least, he had to improve himself to the extreme. It would be difficult for him to make another breakthrough. Only then would he consider entering the universe. Now, of course, he had to seize the opportunity to comprehend the origin of the world. This kind of opportunity was hard to come by. It was hard to say if he would encounter it again after this time. It was probably impossible. Directly comprehending the origin of the world was like exposing the origin of the world to others. If he met someone with evil intentions, the origin of the world would be plundered and devoured, causing great damage. Even if he didn't, directly comprehending the origin of the world would also consume some of the world's origin. If Chernzong hadn't agreed to disguise himself as a ghost and sneak into the purgatory ghost race and devour a lot of Ghost Realm's wills, the will of the world would never have allowed Chernzong to comprehend the world's origin directly. Originally, Chernzong had only planned to perfect the Taichu sword source technique and improve it. He didn't expect the new Taichu sword source technique to be so profound. It even triggered the dormant origin energy in his body, allowing it to truly merge with his body and transform it into an acquired spiritual body. Chernzong set his eyes on the Yin-Yang Dao Will. The Yin-Yang Dao Will was at the top level, the third level of the extreme realm. However, it had only reached 70% of its power. Chernzong didn't have the time to comprehend it. Now, he would take the opportunity to comprehend it to perfection. If he had the chance, he would comprehend it to the extreme and see if it could become a Supreme Dao Will like the Sword Will. Supreme Dao Will. Its power was extremely shocking. Chernzong was very clear since he grasped the Heart Sword Will. If the Yin-Yang Dao Will could also be improved to the Supreme Dao Will, he would have more tricks up his sleeve. The Yin-Yang Dao Will was also a kind of mystery of heaven and earth. Naturally, it was also included in the origin of the world. It ignored many mysteries of heaven and earth, and only took yin and yang. Comprehend. Black and white were instantly drawn out from the origin of the world and revolved around Chernzong. They were the Yin-Yang Dao Will of the world's origin. The white and black origin energy danced like dragons and snakes as they soared and revolved around Chernzong. Gradually, they connected without beginning or end and were boundless. As he comprehended, strands of Yin-Yang Dao Will were drawn out and fused into Chernzong's divine sea and fused into the divine wheel of the Yin-Yang Dao Will within his divine sea. This sort of comprehension allowed for the most obvious improvement. If he comprehended it in the outside world, he could only comprehend the profundities within and then slowly improve. However, when he comprehended it before the origin of the world, he would draw strands of origin energy into his divine sea and directly improve. All the profundities would naturally emerge and be grasped by him without leaving behind any side effects. If the two were to be compared, then comprehending the profundities of heaven and earth in the outside world was like walking on a difficult, dangerous, and winding path. It just so happened that it was suffused with mist, causing one to be unable to see ahead clearly and advance forward with extreme difficulty. On the other hand, comprehending the origin of the world directly was like riding a carriage on a flat and wide road. Not only that, there would be waves of wind blowing from behind. One only needed to expend a small amount of energy to be able to borrow the wind to move forward without end and achieve twice the result with half the effort. How shocking was the gap between the two! The profundities of the Yin-Yang Dao insight were ceaselessly comprehended by Chernzong, and its might was ceaselessly improving at an extremely swift speed. 80%, 90%. It wasn't long before he broke through and attained perfection. After he consolidated it to perfection, Chernzong let out a breath of air, and countless profundities related to yin and yang surged into appearance in his mind. Yin and yang. Heaven and earth. Heaven and earth. This was the comprehension Chernzong obtained when he was at the eternal battle fort's heaven and earth bloodline, and it was even more profound now. Life and death. This was the new profundities comprehended after he comprehended the Yin-Yang Dao insight to perfection. After life and death was reincarnation. For a time, Chernzong fell into an extremely profound state, and it was as if he had a sudden epiphany. Instantly, the clear light on the surface of a lake that was like a gentle breeze had caused ripples, and it seemed to have become a gale that was blowing. Strands of origin energy of the world suffused out from it and fluttered about like dragons and snakes as they charged towards Chernzong. In the blink of an eye, Chernzong was enveloped by the multicolored origin energy of the world, and it seemed to have been weaved into a cocoon. The origin energy of the world was a hodgepodge, and it was the sum of countless profundities of the heaven and earth. There were various types of origin energy within it, like the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and so on and so forth, and it was all-encompassing. Amongst the different profundities of the heaven and earth, some were in opposition to each other, and some were dependent on each other and had a faint connection between them. For example, sword insight was a single profundity that existed independently. On the other hand, the yin-yang Tao insight was different. It seemed to only contain the profundities of yin and yang, yet if one studied it deeply, one would notice that it contained even more profundities. Of course, it didn't mean that the yin-yang Tao insight could be used as other Tao insights, but the yin-yang Tao insight contained the profundities of some other Tao insight. It wasn't the complete profundities, but it contained a portion or even a portion of it. Yin and yang. Heaven and earth. Heaven and earth. The profundities of the heaven and the earth were both similar and different. But yin and yang each contained a portion of the profundities of the heaven and earth, and this was something that Chen Zong had comprehended earlier. Now, Chen Zong had instead comprehended a portion of the profundities of life and death from the yin-yang Tao insight, and then he comprehended a portion of the profundities of samsara from the profundities of life and death. Life and death and samsara could be said to be closely related. The heaven and earth could be a type of Tao insight, and it was the heaven and earth Tao insight. The earth could be the heaven and earth Tao insight as well. Life and death could similarly be the life and death Tao insight. As for samsara, it was extremely brilliant and it surpassed yin and yang, the heaven and earth and life and death. Perhaps it was at the level of a supreme Tao insight. But at this moment, Chen Zong didn't comprehend the samsara Tao insight, and he fell into a state of enlightenment instead. The profundities of yin and yang, the heaven and earth, life and death, and even a portion of samsara surged into his mind. Subsequently, the responding quintessence energy was drawn over, and strands of it separated from the quintessence of the world and slowly drifted towards Chen Zong before fusing into Chen Zong's divine sea and into the yin-yang divine wheel. The yin-yang divine wheel was undergoing some sort of transformation. In the next moment, the hurricane formed from the fusion of the wind, fire, and lightning Tao insight rotated mightily as strands of the quintessence energy of the wind, fire, and lightning Tao insight separated from the quintessence of the world and surged into the divine sea before fusing into the fusion of the Tao insight. Advance, advance, advance. The fusion of the wind, fire, and lightning Tao insight rapidly advanced from the second level of the Supreme Realm to the third level of the Supreme Realm, and then it swiftly attained 80% and 90% of its might. Breakthrough. 100% of its might. Each of the wind, fire, and lightning Tao insights were only high-level Tao insights, but their combined might surpassed that of a top-level Tao insight. Of course, it was still inferior to a supreme Tao insight. The gap between a top-level Tao insight and a supreme Tao insight was far greater than the gap between a high-level Tao insight and a top-level Tao insight. It could even be said that it was like the gap between two major levels, and it was not something that could be made up with quantity. It was a complete transformation. However, the fusion of the wind, fire, and lightning Tao insight that had reached 100% of its might contained an extremely terrifying power. The hurricane raged and roared, and as it rotated, the hurricane turned into a blazing red color. Countless black thunderbolts densely covered it, flickering and leaping endlessly as if they could destroy everything. Destruction, destruction, destruction. Among the Tao insights there was also a type of Tao insight called destruction. It was a type of tyrannical and terrifying power that could transform into a supreme Tao insight. When the destruction Tao insight was born, it was already at the top-level Tao insight, and it was easier for it to transform into a supreme Tao insight. Rumble. Within Chen Zong's divine sea, The flaming thunderstorm that contained a terrifying aura of destruction swept out, as if it was going to destroy everything. It turned into nothingness as it continuously approached the yin-yang divine wheel that was covered in colorful light. In the next moment, a huge collision occurred. Boom! The momentum was terrifying, and it reverberated through the heavens and the earth. The divine sea trembled endlessly as if it was going to collapse because of this. In an instant, the heart sword essence and sword radiance shone brightly, as if countless sword chi and sword radiance swept out, and all the tremors were weakened in an instant. The divine sea became more and more stable. Power! 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 Wisps of the origin of the world separated, and each wisp of power was different. They constantly filled the air and poured into Chen Zong's divine sea, into the exploding yin-yang divine wheel, and into the fusion of the wind, fire, and lightning Tao insight. As the origin of the world continued to separate and pour into Chen Zong's divine sea, the will of the world, which seemed to have disappeared but was actually observing from the side, finally felt the pain. These powers all belonged to it, and now they were constantly being absorbed. Although it did not feel like a lot, it should be known that it was not easy to accumulate such power. If it had not swallowed a lot of Ghost Realm wills in the Purgatory Ghost Realm this time, and finally swallowed a huge amount of Ghost Realm wills on the broken arm of the flaming ghost deity, it would not have allowed Chen Zong to absorb so much origin of the world. Now it was enough. It was enough. Stop. Chapter 1907. The competition for the top 10 spots in the monthly votes list was intense. The 6 paths had only rested for a short while, and Lu Sa had already made it to the top 10. Not long after, she fell to the 11th place, then to the 9th place, and now to the 10th place. She was only a few votes away from the 11th place, and could be overtaken at any time. The ups and downs were just like riding a roller coaster. The ups and downs were too fast. His heart was thumping so hard that he couldn't stand it. Appeal, appeal, appeal. Our Ascension Realm cultivators are crying piteously for food. We need more monthly votes. Let us maintain our position in the top 10 and not be overtaken. This is the first time our Ascension Realm cultivators have made it to the top 10 after nearly 6 million words. If we miss this opportunity, there will not be a next time. After all, it was the right time, the right place, and the right people that made it possible for us to achieve this result. Next time, it would be hard for us to have such a good opportunity. Therefore, I implore everyone to support us. Of course, support us within your capabilities. If you were to throw out your panties, the 6 paths would feel uneasy. Chapter 1908. 6 paths saw everyone's passion and strength. Now we have entered the top 10 and achieved the best ranking in the history of the book. Of course, 6 paths' hard work was partly due to everyone's hard work, but it was also due to everyone's hard work. 6 paths was moved to tears. He bowed 365 degrees to express his gratitude. Originally, he thought that once he entered the top 10, he would be in the bag. He did not expect the competition to be so cruel. There were ups and downs, and the ranking could fall out of the top 10 at any time. Can it cool down our burning passion and boiling blood during this period of time? Could it let the hard work of everyone and the hard work of the samsara go to waste? Can it make all the hope and excitement that we've been painstakingly waiting for this period of time vanish into thin air? Can't. No. Can't. Absolutely can't. By the end of this month, we must be in the top 10. Even if it is only the 10th place, at least it will prove that our achievements and hard work were all worth it. Therefore, 6 paths will adjust his state of mind and prepare for the next outbreak. I implore everyone to vote for 6 paths if you have a monthly vote to protect our achievements. Once again, thank you for your support. 6 paths was really grateful. He smiled like a 300-pound child. Now let's talk about today's update. Some of you might have already guessed it. That's right. Today's update was about the final battle between Little Rice Dumpling and Little God God. They loved each other and wanted to kill each other. Six Paths even thought about the name of the chapter. It was called Archenemy. When he thought about it, Six Paths could not help but think of Su Song's song. It was the song about Archenemy. Archenemy, life and death, victory and defeat. Chapter 1909. I saw that the group was discussing how to make the dominator of the 6 realms enter the top 5. I was so excited that I almost broke my phone. Anyway, I'm going to fix my phone. The battle between East Emperor and West Sage is about to begin. The sky was high and the clouds were light. The sky was blue and boundless. Chen Zong appeared under the clear sky. His face was full of shock. Just a moment ago, Yi Futian was still in the depths of the world, comprehending the origin of the world. The will of Yin and Yang seemed to have gained a deeper level of comprehension and comprehended more mysteries. It even led to the fusion of wind, fire, and thunder. His will of Wei also improved along with it. In the end, it became incomparably violent as it swept towards Yi Futian and collided directly with the Yin and Yang divine wheel that was in the midst of transformation. It was like an earth-shattering explosion. It was like a star exploding. The explosion shook Chen Zong's divine sea. The heart sword will exploded and stabilized the divine sea. A large amount of the origin of the world separated strands of the corresponding origin power and merged into the divine sea. But in the next moment, he left the origin of the world and appeared under the boundless sky above the vast land. Will of the world, Chen Zong called. There was no response. The will of the world was in a bad mood. If he manifested as a human, he would definitely find that his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Chen Zong's comprehension was not ordinary. First, he perfected the Taichu sword energy technique. That consumed some of the origin power of the world, but it was not much. It was completely within the acceptable range. Later, he comprehended the Yin and Yang Dao will. It was completely beyond Chen Zong's expectations. Because he had an epiphany. Once he had an epiphany, there were more variables. It led to more origin power of the world being absorbed by Chen Zong. The world was in pain. That power was accumulated by the world for many years. It would take many years to recover if it consumed a little. If it consumed too much, it would even hurt its foundation. Fortunately, Chen Zong's comprehension and absorption did not hurt its foundation. But it could not continue to absorb. If it did not make a deal with Chen Zong and let him take the risk of disguising himself as a ghost and sneaking into the purgatory, the will of the world really wanted to slap Chen Zong to death. The prerequisite was that he had the ability to do so. But then again, if not for that deal, the will of the world would not have allowed Chen Zong to enter the depths of the world to comprehend the origin of the world. Comprehension was comprehension. Absorption was absorption. These were two different things. All in all, Chen Zong had profited greatly. In the Spirit Sea, the longsword formed by the heart sword intent suppressed everything. In another place, there was a ball of gray light that was spinning continuously. One could vaguely see the divine wheel turning, the howling of hurricanes, the raging of thunder, and the blazing of fire. Chaos. It was filled with destruction, an extremely terrifying destruction that seemed to destroy everything. It constantly disappeared, condensed, and reappeared, as if it was an endless cycle between life and death. Chen Zong found that his divine sense was completely isolated. He couldn't penetrate it at all, let alone interfere. All the changes were happening on their own. However, no one knew when the changes would be completed. Chen Zong had a premonition that after all these changes were completed, the Yin-Yang Dao insight would absolutely give him a pleasant surprise. Perhaps at that time it wouldn't be a top-grade Dao insight, but a supreme Tao insight. It was extremely difficult to achieve a supreme Tao insight. To be able to master the supreme heart sword intent, he had first been sharpened by the three tribulations sharpening secret technique. The three tribulations sharpening secret technique was created by a supreme expert of the sword Tao in ancient times. It was only passed down after being perfected to the extreme. Its original intent was extraordinary. Although it couldn't completely transform the heart sword Tao insight into a supreme sword intent in the end, it had already laid a solid foundation. Potential. The three tribulations sharpening secret technique gave the heart sword Tao insight the potential to evolve into a supreme Tao insight. Without this potential, the difficulty of transforming the heart sword Tao insight into a supreme Tao insight would be at least 10 times more difficult. It was also because of the three tribulations sharpening secret technique, Chernzong's continuous accumulation, and the blessings of heaven and earth that he finally used this as a foundation. When the heart sword Tao insight was on the verge of death, he had a burst of inspiration and created the fourth tribulation of the three tribulations sharpening secret technique, which was also the last tribulation. The void-breaking tribulation. The tribulation of fragmentation was based on the principle that there would be no construction without destruction, and construction after destruction. However, it wasn't as if one could build it after destruction. Most of the time, it would be destroyed after destruction. It would be gone, and it would vanish into thin air. Only with an extremely solid foundation, perseverance and indomitable will even in the face of death, and the blessings of heaven and earth would there be some hope of rebuilding after destruction. Then, after rebuilding, it would be another question whether it would return to its original state or truly surpass the shackles and break the limit. In short, he had mastered the supreme sword intent, but the difficulties and dangers in it were difficult to explain. The current Yin-Yang Tao insight should also be transforming in the direction of the supreme Tao insight. This process would take longer than the supreme sword intent, but it would be safer. It could be said that each had its own advantages. World will. Chernzong called out a second time. However, the world will still didn't respond. It was full of resentment and didn't want to answer Chernzong at all. Moreover, it threw a heavenly palace god at him. That's right, it really threw a heavenly palace god. Above the vast and deep land, under the endless blue sky, a vast golden light flew over from afar. That golden light was extremely majestic, and it was at least 1,000 feet long. It streaked across the vacuum and directly left an extremely long golden trajectory that was tens of thousands of meters long. It didn't dissipate for a long time, and it was filled with an earth-shattering domineering majesty. It was as if it was suppressing heaven and earth. Rumble. After the golden light flew for tens of thousands of meters, a series of muffled sounds could be heard. It was like thunder resounding through the world, and it was as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. It shook heaven and earth. In an instant, many cultivators in the profound realm were alarmed. The aura emitted by that golden light was too strong, as if it was above all living creatures. It made people feel fear just by sensing it. Even experts with 9-star battle prowess felt the same. That golden light, that's the heavenly Yuan Holy Sun. Someone had already recognized the identity of the golden light amidst the shock. After the last battle, the heavenly palace god had single-handedly blocked tens of thousands of soldiers. With his own strength, he had defeated and killed tens of thousands of soldiers of the Ghost Clan, causing the entire army to be wiped out. Furthermore, the Ghost King had fled in panic, shocking the world. The 4 words, Heavenly Yuan Holy Sun, resounded throughout the profound realm, and even the Heavenly Yuan Holy Territory. The cultivators also learned more about the mysteries of this world. For example, the classification of the pinnacle of the demigod realm, and so on. Before the invasion of the Purgatory Ghost Clan, there were no pinnacle demigod realm experts in the Heavenly Yuan Holy Territory. The most powerful ones were the elite 9-star expert. Even now, after the invasion of the Purgatory Ghost Clan, although many cultivators had died, the cultivators who survived had all benefited and become more powerful. However, there was still no Pinnacle Demigod Realm expert. Currently, there were 3 Pinnacle Demigod Realm experts in the Heavenly Yuan Holy Territory. The Heavenly Palace God of the Heavenly Yuan Holy Palace, Jiandi Chun Zong, Sword Demon Chun Xiu. Any one of them was an expert who could kill tens of thousands of soldiers with a single sword strike. Especially the Heavenly Palace God of the Heavenly Yuan Holy Palace and Jiandi Chun Zong, who had won the title of Holy Son of the West of the Eastern Jiandi. This was because Chun Zong's sword had come from the East, and the Heavenly Palace God was the profound saint of the Profound Realm. The Profound Realm was located in the west of the Heavenly Yuan Holy Territory. There were even some people who wondered if he could contend with the legendary Great Saint Stage powerhouse. After all, Supreme Saint Realm experts had not appeared for many years. Even during the invasion of the Purgatory Ghost Clan, no Supreme Saint Realm experts had appeared. As for the reason, no one knew except for the will of the Heavenly Yuan Holy Realm. Perhaps it was a kind of rule that did not allow them to truly fight, or perhaps it was for other reasons. All in all, it was a mystery. Then, below the Supreme Saint Realm, the 3 Pinnacle Demigod Realm experts were undoubtedly the most powerful ones. Now, the Heavenly Palace God of the Heavenly Yuan Holy Palace had made such a big move. Where were they going? Maybe I know. A half-step Supreme Saint Realm expert's eyes suddenly flashed, and he said in an uncertain tone, "The Heavenly Palace God of the Heavenly Yuan Holy Palace has had many conflicts with Jiandi Chun Zong. This time, he might be going against Jiandi." There was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. The conflicts between the Heavenly Palace God and Chun Zong had been going on for a long time. When there was a lot of attention, it was inevitable that some people would find some clues. Even the previous confrontation at the City Lord's residence in Taishan City had been discovered. The Heavenly Yuan Holy Son has had many conflicts with Jiandi? Someone was very surprised. That's right. I heard this news by chance. I seem to have heard of it too. As far as I know, when the Purgatory Ghost Clan invaded, the Heavenly Yuan Holy Son also fought with Jiandi. It was said that the Purgatory Ghost King intervened in that battle, but the outcome was not decided. Instead, they worked together to defeat the Ghost King. They are opponents and comrades at the same time. Someone's eyes lit up. Let's go and take a look. That's right. Maybe this is a fated confrontation. When there were no external enemies invading, the 2 of them were opponents. They were destined to fight to the death. When there were external enemies invading, the 2 of them could become comrades and work together to fight against the enemy. They were opponents and comrades. The word enemies was the most appropriate way to describe them. Enemies, enemies. A battle between enemies was a battle of fate. It was a duel of fate. It was as if there was a will of heaven. Anticipation. Countless people who knew about it were full of anticipation. Among the 3 ultimate demigods of the human clan, the Heavenly Palace God and Jiandi Chun Zong were relatively more famous. As for Sword Demon Chun Xiu, his reputation was relatively weaker. This was a battle between the strongest. This was a battle between the strongest. Stop it? No one could stop it. Even if they wanted to stop it, they couldn't. This was because this was a battle of fate. Rumble. Rumble. The void was boundless. Only the golden light that seemed to be eternally indestructible continued to move forward. The void realm was very big, but it was also very small. Everything was relative. For ordinary cultivators, it would take a long time to cross the highest profundity realm, and they might even die halfway. However, for top cultivators, crossing the highest profundity realm was only a matter of time, and they would not encounter any danger. It was as if there were divine lightning raging in the void. It was as if there were astral winds raging and roaring. Following that vast and boundless golden light, there were even more figures following behind. Even though they were far behind, they still continued to follow. Everyone's heart seemed to be burning with a ball of fire. They were looking forward to it. They were looking forward to it. The golden and eternal divine light was like a flame. In the center of the flame was a majestic figure, Heavenly God Gong. Heavenly God Gong's eyes seemed to be burning with golden flames as he looked forward. At the end of his line of sight, there was a figure standing between heaven and earth with sword chi soaring into the sky. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.